In modern Fire Emblem, lords and avatars are blessed with extremely powerful and versatile kits to match their story relevance. Corrin is both lord and avatar of their 3 games, and those powers combined make them one of the strongest units in Fire Emblem history. With a near flawless stat spread, perfect class access, perfect availability, and the best personal skill in the entire game, there's almost nothing they can't do, especially in Conquest. How can you even begin to make sense of a unit like that, with a near unlimited number of options? Well, the answer is obvious. I'll just have to talk about everything. This is the definitive guide to the most customizable unit in the series. Hello, welcome back, Corrin! Any Corrin fans in chat? I have a Corrin fan in the house tonight. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, Lunar Dave here. Big Corrin fan here. Corrin expert, maybe. I guess when you play with like 1,000 Corrins in your Corrin quest, you like kind of know a little bit.
Yeah, Dave is probably the most experienced Corrin user by virtue of he does runs where every unit is Corrin. A lot of runs where every unit is Corrin, so he knows a lot about Corrin, is the thing.
Mm-hmm. Only downside, Corrin can't use supportive, so not that that's that relevant, but it is something to keep in mind.
But today we're not analyzing Corrin in the context of a Corrin quest, we're analyzing them in the context of a main lunatic conquest run. And the other guidelines under which we're going to be analyzing them is we're not using resources the average player may not have access to, like DLC or the Infinite Resources patch, and we're trying not to turtle or solo the game because I just find those less fun. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So, Corrin is the earliest joiner in all of Conquest. They join in the Premonition, which is functionally Chapter 0, and they are force deployed on every single map except for invasions. So they are guaranteed to have the best availability in your entire army. And their stats as a level 1 unit are very well-rounded before taking the Boon and Bane into account. There's really no bad stats here, and they are all pretty equally boosted by the Nohr Prince S class. I don't know how to call that, but yeah, Nohr Prince or Nohr Princess. And they start out as a sword and stone unit. Pretty much everything about Corrin will vary depending on your customization for them, because there's a lot of things that you can choose about your Corrin before starting your run, which is their Boon, their Bane, and their talent, most notably. And also their appearance. And gender, which affects the servants and which units you can marry or befriend.
Don't forget about their birthday.
True! Their birthday actually does something.
Birthday bonuses, my beloved.
You can guarantee you're getting +4 speed if you know you're going to be playing a certain map on a certain day. Particularly Chapter 7. So that's kind of relevant, actually. That's kind of good.
For sure.
So this is just kind of a baseline what to expect from Corrin. They're gonna vary a lot, depending on your particular run. Especially because a lot of their growths are around the 50s, so they can get very blessed or cursed in specific stats. So they are, I think, the most variable unit in Conquest.
For sure.
Their Boon and Bane also affect their pair-up and tag team bonuses, so you don't always know what to expect from that, unless you look them up beforehand, which you can.
Yeah. The only one I know is the strength res, like extra strength boost in S support.
Plus strength minus res is definitely one of, if not the best pair-up bonuses they can get from their Boon and Bane combination. Because that is 3 strength and 2 defense, which is really good, especially with their personal skill supportive, which I would argue is the best personal skill in the game, and it's not close.
I mean, looking at it here, yeah, honestly. Plus 10 hit, plus 2 damage, and minus 2 damage just for sieve support. Like, that's cracked.
That's really good, and it works in both pair-up and tag team. So it's not like Rose of Thorns, where you specifically have to be adjacent. You can be paired up to a unit, and that would still work. It's also very useful if you do play a lot in attack stance, because it still works there. And these bonuses are, like, huge. It's the same hard stat bonuses as Rose of Thorns and Elise Voice, just in slightly different amounts. And plus 10 hit, which is a massive swing. That's the same as Fierce Mean. And in a game where reliability is really highly valued, if you want your strategies to go according to plan, that's really one of the best ways to improve your accuracy that you get in this game.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, pretty much all these stats, like, they help pretty much every early game unit, especially in chapters like chapter 9, where a lot of thresholds can be really fucked up if you miss like even a single time, and also like damage thresholds can be a little tight, or there are times where you do want an enemy phase in chapter 9 if you're in that spot. So getting that extra -2 and, you know, stacking it potentially with other auras and just getting it through pair up alone, that isn't exclusively just towards Corrin, is very nice.
I do think Corrin is easily the best pair-up bot in the game because of their personal skill, and the fact that you can cater their pair-up stats to the specific units you want to be pairing up with. Like, I know a lot of people like plus magic minus luck because that gives +1 speed and C support, and that can be really useful in the early game. I also kind of like plus magic minus HP, which gives 1 strength at C, which is kind of like nice early on, and then starts kind of falling off once you start getting their other pair-up stats, which are 2 magic and 2 speed. And that makes them a really good magical pair-up bot. Really, the only better one would be Nyx, which is all in on magic and speed. This is just really close to that.
Having someone close to that level of pair-up, like having a second one, like, that's pretty good.
If you know what your Boon is going to be, or you know what your Bane is going to be, you can cater the other one to whichever one gives you the best pair-up stats if you know what that's going to give you. And that could be, honestly, one of the bigger contributors to my decision for Boon and Bane, in my experience. Because I do think it's really impactful to make the best pair-up bot in the game even better at pair-up botting. I don't really look at their tag team bonuses as much. I know there's a situation where I wanted to have plus dodge at C support, but then I looked at what combinations give that, and they were like really bad. I don't know. I'm sure you can optimize it if that's something you're looking for. That's not usually one of my higher priorities, but it can certainly come to play.
Yeah, I haven't had too many moments where it super duper mattered outside of like the standard bonuses that you get from every unit anyway.
Yeah, the +10 hit of attack stance is just really big, especially if you have a C support that's just +20 with Corrin instantly.
Yeah, kind of want to get C support with as many units as you can, like investment units especially. Like a lot of units that have hit issues. Nyx is like one, Leo another.
Well, I dispute those, but
yeah. And you know, like Silas, if you want to like stack Vow of Friendship for the early game, like supportive is just cracked as hell when you're stacking like everything on top of it.
It's really, really useful for basically every unit in the early game, and like basically every unit for the entire game, but the early game is the easiest part to point to because it's when stats are lower, so the extra stat bonus is really appreciated. Effie really likes that for one-shot thresholds. Arthur really likes that for accuracy. You know, Jacob and Felicia really like that to take their 1-2 range dagger combat really high. I like using it on the dark mages, and like you said, Silas.
I remember that one time in chapter 10 where Dragonstone and Odin Nosferatu does 1-round KO with a dual strike, and supportive does help with that quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I actually don't have too much to say about Corrin's like stats. Besides, it is notable that Corrin's resistance is pretty much always going to be bad. Even with the resistance boon, it's not great, because their basic growth in that stat is not very high, so they're never going to be that much of a mage killer. But they can at least be a mage survivor if you build them for that.
You can fix Corrin's res like without resistance boon, because the bonuses that you get from it is like, well, it's like 10% of a base that's already really really low anyway, and like taking a Bane, even it doesn't even reduce it by that much. It's like, oh no, my 2 res is now like 1.
Oh no. Yeah, but all of their other stats are like really, really good. There's really no flaws here, besides like maybe sometimes the magic can be a little bit low if you don't have a boon in that stat. Otherwise, it's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same vein, I don't have much to say about the personal stats. Kind of the same thing going on, very evenly balanced. It's going to be influenced by your Bane and Boon a lot. Although it's nice to see that their personal skill and luck bases are high for a level 1 unit. They're both 3, which is pretty nice. Other than that, I don't have much to say here. So let's move on to the Bane and Boon, which are gonna be influencing your stats a lot more. And you have a lot of options for how to build your Corrin in this respect. Do you have any favorites here, Dave?
Actually, I like almost all of them except res and luck. And actually, I have a chart here of like what the most popular boon bans are. And if my memory serves, strength and magic are definitely the most popular, and it makes sense. Strength and magic boon are definitely one of your strongest arguments for, you know, offensive Corrin, and I think speed is also in that argument too. And I think one of the more interesting things about Boon and Banes with Corrin, especially with the boons, is that you can utilize the Boon and Banes pre-Branch of Fate to utilize getting those level ups, and then you can switch to another boon and bane of your choice. So usually speed boon is my preference, so I get like as many speed level ups as I can, and then I switch to a strength or magic boon to min-max those stats. Not to say that Corrin can't work without, you know, strength or even magic boon as like those respective classes, but they certainly help, almost guarantee a lot of it. But I will say, if I had to pick a favorite, it would definitely just be strength, just for the peace of mind, because pretty much every other stat that Corrin wants, she'll get anyway, so you might as well get the one that will definitely help you during the player phase, since Corrin is primarily a physical attacker in her base class.
Yeah, for sure. Corrin is more leaning towards strength in her base kit, so getting that extra 2 strength base plus 15% strength growth can be really nice. And the Boon and Bane doesn't just affect the stat in question, it does also raise the growth of 2 other stats by 5, and in strength's case, that's skill and defense, which are pretty nice stats to boost by 5%. And that's not the most impactful thing that you should be planning your Boon and Bane around, but it's pretty nice because it will average out to, I think, 1 more in those stats after 20 levels, so that's 2 more after 2020, or 1.9 more technically.
For sure, Corrin is definitely the unit you want to 2020 level on more than probably any other unit in the game, due to like their availability being so free. I guess we could mention the magic speed bonus, since that is one of magic's really good traits, that it does give you that extra speed and I guess a little bit of res if you want that. But the extra 20% towards magic is nice, and the +3 is significant for Dragonstone access if you super duper want to get that extra damage, which admittedly I feel like that's more relevant in Revelation than it is in Conquest, but you know, it's still nice to have.
Magic boon is really nice since it does boost the stat more than a lot of these other boons, with the exception of skill and luck, because those are generally less impactful stats from just like a single point. This is basically the stat that you get the most like quote-unquote value from in terms of the like raw numbers. And Magic Corrin is honestly really, really good, since tomes are the best weapon type in the game since they have unrestricted 1-2 range. So building your Corrin for that is really, really powerful. And that's what Magic Boon is really good for, if you know that's what you want to be doing. And so, yeah, I think Strength and Magic Boon are definitely the 2 best ones, in my opinion. But honestly, a lot of these are really good. I personally really like Skill Boon, because I'm a big fan of that reliability. I just really like having a lot of accuracy, especially since Corrin's early game weapons are the Yasuo and the Dragonstone, which have like 85 hit. So getting the extra like peace of mind, making sure those attacks hit, is really nice for me.
It's also fair to point out that it does also kind of give you the equal, if not the highest benefits compared to every other boon that at least I'm seeing over here, because it does give you 25%, which is the highest the game does allow for growths, and +3 for bases. So it's definitely worthwhile if you super duper need that hit rate, especially in like the early game.
Yeah, so on average, a skill boon will give you an extra point of skill after only 4 levels, which is actually really good, and +3 to the base as well. So skill boon Corrin will end up really, really accurate, and that's something I really appreciated, especially on maps like Kitsune Lair, where enemies can be really dodgy, and that can help mitigate that a lot.
And if you're that kind of guy who really wants to Dragon Fang proc, it'll definitely help you get to it a little better, for sure.
Yeah. Skill boon is also good for funny builds like that, which we'll talk about later.
The one bad thing about Skill Boon, we already mentioned it as a positive, but if you're not that kind of player, it can be somewhat annoying that your crit chances are just higher if you're using anything higher than bronze. So some people that do go Skill Boon, if they're inclined to not crit for like planning reasons or anything like that, it can hamper it by a little bit because their crit rates are just higher the moment they get anything other than bronze or non-crittable weapons. But That sounds like a pretty decent problem to have, all things considered. At the end of the day, I think at least hitting your target is super important, and if your Corrin is going to be player phase focused anyway, it doesn't super matter, especially if you're not going planned at all. I still do think skill boon is pretty okay, but I could see why some people might not like it. But yeah, it's good. Like, that's like the one bad thing about it. It crits too much sometimes.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a niche that luck boon has over it, if you want to push the luck boon agenda. But I think most of the time, the best weapons in the game are the ones that can't crit anyway. So the situations where you're using something like a steal are gonna be pretty limited, especially using a steal and having crit be a negative that you have to worry about. Like, maybe the steel shuriken, but I don't know, I think the bronze dagger +2 is just better. But I guess it can matter in the early game with, like, the Yato, so that's fair. And luck boon is kind of just like a weaker skill boon. Luck is generally worse stat than skill. It gives a lot less hit, but in exchange it also gives some avoid and dodge. And that can be nice. I think, unless you're going luck Bane, you don't really need that much more luck. But honestly, I don't think it's the worst boon in Conquest. I think it definitely has a use case, since it boosts the stat by a lot, like skill. +3 base and +25% growth.
If you're playing an Iron Man run, I could see the benefit of it just to have like a little bit better crit dodge, or I guess a massive crit dodge, because it can matter. And even with Luck Bane, which we'll get to later, like Corrin's luck stat will still be solid pretty much no matter what, even without a goddess icon. And then yeah, there's defense boon, which I'm actually surprised it doesn't give us much of a bonus. Oof.
Yeah, so the defensive boons, HP defense and resistance, we'll talk about defense and resistance first. Defense, it doesn't boost the stat by as much as you might think. So I know a lot of people really recommend defense boon to get a really tanky Corrin, but in practice it's not going to be that much tankier than a non-defense boon Corrin. And then same thing for resistance, really. It doesn't improve your resistance by that much, and Corrin's resistance is already pretty low, so it's not really going to fix it. Resistance boon Corrin honestly isn't that good of a mage killer, so I'm not super fond of defense and resistance boon. I think there's a case to be made for defense boon, I'm just not the kind of person who would be convinced by it.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is probably stat caps more than anything else that I can think of. I could at least see an argument like, oh, it's like slightly higher stat caps, which gives me that peace of mind. One thing that I've heard through a source is Corrin in defense boon is a pretty okay way to start getting ignore strats for ignore AI in Conquest, which I suppose could be nice, especially in an Iron Man context, to where it's just nice for Corrin to be able to approach enemies and just kill them for more EXP, and it can help train certain units a little nicer. But after a certain point, ignore AI just really stops mattering in a game like this, and sometimes in, say, like Chapter 10, it can be more harmful, since you want to kill a lot of the enemies that come your way. You don't want to ignore strat it unless you're taking up the 4 tiles by yourself, and I guess leaving 1 tile where no one's getting hurt could be something, along with like getting a defense surge from Effie. But regardless, it's kind of and in the long term, I feel, especially in the late game, I do find that HP boon would probably matter a lot more, because you're getting the boost in defense and res anyway, along the fact that
between HP and defense boon, there's only a 1 defense base and 5% defense growth difference, and they give the same amount of resistance.
And yeah, the extra HP boost is just a lot nicer overall, because if you really think about it, HP is just +1 defense and res.
True, kind of. A little bit, kind of.
Kind of. With res, it's already kind of like, the bar is in hell. So I don't think it's going to contribute, especially when it's just +1 res. If it was like a +3, maybe. But it's just +1, and it gives the least amount of bonuses along with defense boon. We forgot to mention HP. To be fair, Corrin's, I think even on their personals, they're a bit higher than the average Fates cast with their HP stat. Admittedly, their base stats do kind of suck at times with HP, so I can see an argument of why people would like HP boon. It doesn't hurt for the extra 15% and +3.
Corrin has a really nice HP growth. So I find Corrin's HP is usually going to be higher than other Fates units. But if you want to go for a more defensive boon, I think HP is probably the best one. Since it gives 3 to the base and 15% of the growth, that's more than you're getting from defense resistance. And it still boosts defense and resistance by 5%. So that's probably what I would go for if I want a really tanky Corrin. Usually that's not what I'm looking for, but I can definitely see going for HP boon on Corrin.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, as a side tangent with Corrin quests, one of the biggest issues, aside from res, that you'll see in like a lot of those runs is actually the HP stat being comically low. So yeah, having that extra boost towards HP, especially towards the bulkier units, will help a lot more versus, you know, the defensive boons that we mentioned already.
We didn't talk about speed that much. We talked about it in the context of the Branch of Fate, where it is really nice to hit thresholds there, and then you can switch off to something else if you want to, like, specialize your Corrin towards Strength or Magic. And I think that's why Speed Boon is really popular in the Branch of Fate. It can also be pretty good long term. Corrin doesn't have that much issue reaching speed thresholds, but if you want to help them a lot more, then that can definitely help, and it also helps with reliability, getting more skill and luck, so that can also be nice.
Yeah, I think Speed Boon is most context dependent on what talent Corrin goes for sure. I think if you're going like Samurai or Ninja talent, Speed Boon is probably the most redundant boon you could give to Corrin. But if you're going to say like Wyvern or realistically any one of the slower classes that you're expecting to double, so not general, I could see an argument for that at least.
Definitely. There's kind of an interesting dynamic between Strength and Speed Boon for physical Corrins, where it depends on which threshold you think will be easier to reach depending on your class. So, like, if you're going into a really strong class like Wyvern, you might want to go Speed Boon. And if you're going to a really fast class like Ninja, you might go Strength Boon. And that lets you, like, tailor your stats to the kind of build you want to be going towards in the future. I don't think the same kind of dynamic really exists between Speed and Magic, because I think Magic Corrins usually just want to go Magic Boon, because they have slightly lower Magic without it, to the point where it can kind of matter. Not always, since they can use the Levin Sword and get a lot of might from that, but, like, usually Magic Corrins want to go Magic Boon, whereas physical Corrins don't always want to go Strength Boon.
Yeah, the extra 20% does legitimately matter, for certain, and you're getting a speed boost anyway.
And as for the Banes, this is what's going to decrease a certain stat by certain amounts, and so here we're going to want to use the opposite logic, where we want to reduce the stats we don't care about. So probably the worst Banes, in my opinion, are skill and speed, because skill also reduces that stat by a lot more than the other Banes here, and that's gonna really hurt Corrin's early game accuracy or late game accuracy if you're not using Gunter, and so that can be really inconvenient. It really hurts for the same reason that skill boon really helps, basically.
Yeah, and if you're going pre-Branch of Fate, it's gonna be even more miserable because Corrin's base kit weapons are already kind of low on hit already, so getting, even without ignoring the growths, like the -2 is kind of painful for hit rates. So it's like, ugh, that's not good. And, you know, continuing on like with the early game, this is like the point of the game where hit like super duper matters, where, you know, missing even once post chapter 7 is kind of devastating. So I don't see why you would ever go with that. And same thing with speed. Corrin's speed is pretty solid, but like reducing that by even 10% is enough to where it will become a problem. And in one of my first Corrin quests, I had, I think, 4 Corrins with Speed Bane. That was not fun, having that many Corrins with like 20 something speed by like end game. It's rough in a game like Rev, but yeah, this is definitely some of the worst Banes in the game for sure, in my opinion.
It definitely still matters in Conquest, because speed is one of those stats that is always going to be relevant regardless of what build your Corrin is going towards. Even if you're going for a more support-oriented Corrin, this is gonna matter for the training arc leading up to the final build, and like both physical and magical Corrins are gonna be affected really hard by Speed Bane, so it can be really bad. It can take you under some of the doubling thresholds that you would have reached otherwise.
The only argument I guess I could see is if there's a potential pair up, but I don't know enough to necessarily say like, oh, speed with this boon is like really good.
I think there is something, maybe plus HP minus speed or something. I can check, hang on.
Because I think that's the only way I could see someone going Speed Bane. Or skill, really.
Oh, yeah. Plus, HP minus speed is, like, it gives 3 defense, so that's pretty nice. So I think if you want a lot of bulk from a pair up, that's something you might appreciate, but otherwise, it's really niche. And I think in most cases, you'd be better off going something like plus string minus res for similar pair up bonuses that are probably overall going to be better for you. And then, luckily, Strength and Magic Bane are not as bad as Strength and Magic Boon are good, because Corrin is a mixed attacker. So if you know what side of damage Corrin's going to be leaning towards, then you don't need to invest very much into the other one. So if you know you really want a physical Corrin, Magic Bane doesn't really hurt you because you're not going to be using magic weapons. And then it's the same for Magic Corrins, right? So there are a lot of situations where Strength or Magic Bane can really help you. It does hurt a little bit in the early game because the early game is a situation where Corrin does get a lot out of both their Strength and Magic stats, since the Yato and the Dragonstone are both really good weapons. So limiting yourself in that way kind of hurts, especially Strength Bane. I think that really hurts on Chapter 7, since Yato Corrin is like easily the best unit on that map. But I don't have as many hiccups with Magic Bane, since I think you could definitely get away without using the Dragonstone in the early game if you're focusing and doubling with the Yato.
One thing that is interesting is when I looked at my spreadsheet over here, Magic Bane is the most popular Bane, which actually caught me off guard for a while. I was trying to figure out why, because for a while I felt like Magic and Res Bane shared similar roles, but Res Bane was a little better. But the interesting part is that in a Conquest run, you don't need Dragonstone like ever. So having that like one difference of res, it's a little better, unless you're just going like Nohr Princess, which if you're doing Magic Bane, what are you doing? But for sure, Magic Bane is definitely not as bad as I think some people give credit for. I think it's actually like pretty solid.
And it's similar to Resistance Bane, like you said. They reduce the same stats, but by different amounts. That can be a little bit bad. Reducing the magic and speed growth can be slightly bad, but that's actually the only negative thing about Resistance Bane. So Resistance is already a stat that Corrin is not really using. Corrin's not really a good mage killer, so they're already not going to be fighting mages most of the time. So reducing that stat that is already like one of the worst stats in the game, it doesn't really hurt you that much. So I think Res Bane is probably the best Bane in the game.
I think probably the most underrated Bane is probably HP. It's pretty well rounded. The stuff that it affects either usually just evens out, or oh no, my Corrin's HP stat is an average Fates unit.
Yeah, Corrin already has really good HP, so reducing their HP a little bit just kind of gives them normal HP. So I also really like HP Bane, especially because I tend to play very offensively, so I don't tend to gain as much from super bulky units. So reducing that bulk in exchange for other stats can give you a bit of a niche over like Res Bane, which does slightly reduce your speed. Minus HP is my favorite Bane to go when I'm going with a magic boon, I'd say.
That's fair, for sure. I guess like the most popular Bane that I knew for a while was Luck Bane, and it's mostly because like even with Luck Bane, Corrin's just gonna have pretty solid luck regardless. It does affect your strength and magic by a teeny tiny bit, but I don't think it's by an amount that super matters if you're already going into a boon of one of these, because 5% matters when you're like 50 or 45% as your base, but when you're already going past like the 55s, I don't think it super matters.
I think Luck Bane is kind of overrated, because it does reduce that luck by a solid amount. And yes, it's true that luck is one of the worst stats in the game, so reducing it isn't gonna hurt you as much as hurting like your skill or speed, but it still does hurt you, because that's a solid amount of like accuracy and dodge. So it does result in a lot of players giving the early Goddess-like onto Corrin, which I think is a resource that's honestly better spent on units like Arthur or Camilla. So I usually prefer not to go Luck Bane to conserve that resource for someone else.
I think the more experienced a player is, especially in regards to consistency and planning, Luck Bane gets exponentially worse. I think the earlier you get into Fates, Luck Bane is probably the one that people will gravitate towards. But I think another thing is most people don't know how the Boon and Bane system works very well.
Yeah.
So I could see like a lot of people just forgetting like what HP and, you know, resistance Bane does in comparison, which I think those two Banes are just better than Luck overall. But yeah, there's definitely a reason why people like picking Luck Bane. I think it's just a factor of once you start looking at a chart like this, you start to realize that Luck Bane is a little worse than I think people realize.
Yeah. And then the last one here is Defense Bane, which I kind of like for the same reasons as HP Bane. It's pretty similar in a lot of respects. And actually, a lot of the boons, when combined with HP and Defense Bane, give pretty similar para bonuses. So they can kind of be a little bit interchangeable in that respect. So I guess it kind of depends on which defensive stat you value more in HP or defense. Usually defense is going to be better, so I think usually you go HP Bane, but Defense Bane definitely has a niche. I think it's not bad at all.
It's probably better for certain para bonuses than HP in some cases.
I don't remember exactly. I think they're probably different sometimes, but I know sometimes they are exactly the same, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's definitely at least a niche for Defense Bane. And it doesn't really hurt even by that much if it's like a -1 penalty for sure. And yeah, the growths do kind of stink. But again, Bates is D game where if your only problem is one stat, it's not that big of a deal.
And the last customization thing for Corrin, besides birthday, is their talent, where Corrin gets to choose their Heartseal class out of any class in the entire game. So right now we're just looking at all the Nohrian classes. We'll look at the Hashiden classes later. So if you're wondering where the runtime of this video came from, it's probably here.
Oh boy. I want you guys to know that the way this video started was just Ant DMing me saying, hey, want to talk about Corrin for like 3 to 4 hours? And I was like, yeah!
So, yeah, before we get in the weeds of that, this is normally where just like a unit's normal like base heart friendship class set comes in. So first, I want to like at least look at Corrin's base class of Nohr Princess or Nohr Prince, because I think that can go a little bit under discussed. And honestly, I think it's pretty decent. You get swords and stones, which in fairness are the two worst weapon types in the game. But in the early game, being one range locked with those weapon types is honestly not that bad, because most enemies are gonna be attacking at one range anyway, except like archers and ninjas sometimes, which you can usually just use a different unit for those, like Effie or Niles. So there are a lot of situations where Nohr Prince S, I still don't know how I'm gonna say that, but
yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of situations where that class can be really nice in the early game. And since this is Conquest as opposed to Birthright or Rev, the only promotion choice you get is Nohr Noble. You don't get Hoshido Noble in this game, which is also pretty... it's good.
Yeah.
It's outclassed, but it's good.
No, for sure.
It gets tomes on promotion, which is really good, because we already said how that's the best weapon type in the game, and it gives a solid amount of magic on promotion. But the main downside is it's going to be reducing your accuracy. So Nohr Noble is not a very accurate class, especially if you're using the Levin Sword, which your Corrin will probably be the best recipient of, since they're gonna have C-rank swords by this point, realistically. And that lets them deal more magic damage, which can be pretty useful against more resistant enemies like Outlaws. I do get a lot of use out of Levin Sword Nohr Noble Corrin for a short period of time, especially like chapter 15, 16. I think it's really nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. I guess in regards to like how I feel, I do think that they are very underappreciated classes. I think people have sort of overstated on like how, you know, quote unquote bad that they are. And you can, when you look at like every single class Corrin definitely has, like, yeah, for sure. But in regards to like how other lords are in their base classes, Corrin's not even like in the lower echelon of that. In regards to the skill access, nobility, it's not as significant as some people might think. I think it's like 1 extra level for like every something amount of levels. It's not that significant, but it is still nice. Like, it's gonna matter, maybe never, but you might as well have it, right? Until you get like your skill slots filled up. Dragon Fang, it is one of the better skill procs by the fact you get it so early, and a lot of the issues that skill procs have don't super duper matter in the early game. So it's not going to hurt you compared to something like Lethality or even like Luna. And then once you get to like Nohr Noble, Draco Hex is situationally nice against certain bosses in the game. Kotaro is probably one where it can really matter because the hit rates on that guy are kind of rough. And Nohri Trust is there for the fun gimmicky builds if you want to try those out, which we'll get to eventually.
Yeah.
But again, I think what really carries Corrin in this base class is almost entirely driven by the Dragonstone access, since Corrin is uniquely the only one who can access Dragonstones, and it being magic based. That alone makes her worthwhile keeping her in base class for the early game, due to like the extra bulk and the extra hit magical damage for dual strikes in particular. So it ends up being actually a pretty decent class for the early game, and then yeah, by the time you reach like chapter 17-ish is probably about the time you want to swap off. But before then, I don't see too much issue with keeping her in base class.
I don't think it's really that Nohr Noble like super falls off. Like it's good on like 16, 18.
Yeah, like it's still good for sure. It's just one of those cases where it's like, oh wow, I have like a buffet, but I'm only eating like one food type deal.
Yeah. It's worse than every other magic class in the game, basically, but it's still a magic class, so, like, that's good. So, if you're doing, like, a no reclass run, you won't hate your Corrin, but if reclassing is on the table, you probably want to get out of here.
For sure.
Now we need to get into all this nonsense. Okay. Alright, so, the Nohrian classes.
Fighter.
Fighter, let's talk about Fighter. What is there to say about Fighter talent?
Maybe we could compare it to
Mercenary? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Mercenary and Fighter, I think, are probably the most similar due to the fact that they both have access to Hero. And I guess, like, between the two, I would say HP plus 5 is pretty nice. Gamble is what kind of hurts. I mean, it's not a good skill in general, but it's, like, definitely not good on Corrin, for sure. Unless you run a Conquest with like Certain Blow and Lucky 7. Like, yeah, it's not worth going to Fighter just for Gamble, but HP plus 5 can be nice due to the fact that Fate's HP units are kind of low in the first place. And then with Berserker, you have Rally Strength and Axe Fair. And the Rally alone can be worthwhile if you're trying to get to it as fast as possible, and if you're not using Charlotte or Arthur, I could see an argument for that. And Axe Fair is pretty solid, although Axes already do a crap ton of damage. And then, yeah, you get Hero with Axe Breaker and Soul, which, for certain classes that do want it, is nice. It's definitely one of those cases where it might be better if it was for a marriage, but at the same time, there's a lot of fighters who do have the ability to give off that marriage or friendship, so... And Corrin can't even give friendship, which is a little unfortunate. In regards to like Mercenary, my hot take low-key is, if we're talking about just Hero, I think Fighter Corrin is just a little bit better, purely because of the HP plus 5. And a lot of the perks of Mercenary as a talent don't really apply, because you get so many Mercenaries in Fates. Or I guess you get 2, but that's like plenty to go off around, and same with like child units if you want to like friendship those or get the Gen 2 partner seals.
The thing with Fighter and Mercenary is this is where we do need to make a distinction between Corrin's talent classes and the classes to put Corrin into. Because I don't think I would ever really recommend going Fighter or Mercenary talent, because you have plenty of access to Fighter and Mercenary already. But honestly, they're pretty nice classes to put Corrin into, just through like a friendship. I think especially Mercenary because of Bow Knight, because I think Bow Knight is one of the better classes in the game. But honestly, Hero's pretty nice too. It has like a solid pool of physical stats, and it lets them keep using their sword rank to use the Yato. And the Grim Yato, which is the upgrade version of the Yato you get on Chapter 14, has like 11 might, which is a lot. So that's like a nice nuke option that Hero Corrin gets, and a lot of other sword Corrins get too, but I especially notice it with Hero. And if you train up their axe rank a bit, which is easier to do in Fighter, which is another benefit of Fighter, I think, then they can start using hand axes, and Corrin can be a pretty nice hand axe sweeper. I think hand axes are honestly pretty underrated in Fates. Like, even if they can't double, they can do a lot of damage, especially with dual strikes, and so that's really nice.
And then you look at all the physical Nohrian infantry classes, and when you start looking at all of them, like I think Hero is, especially on the Nohrian side, like really solid. Like it's not gonna really disappoint you, I feel. There's nothing really inherently super duper flawed with Hero outside of the fact that if you don't like skill procs, you probably don't super care about Soul. But Axebreaker can be nice, like that one chapter 25 guy with the Great Club, if that matters.
Have you heard my awesome rage bait argument for why Hero is better than Sorcerer?
No, I have not. Let's hear it.
Okay, so Sorcerer is pretty much always outclassed by Dark Knight because Dark Knight has more defense and movement, and Nosferatu is a bad weapon except for on exactly Odin.
Yeah.
So in the promotion choice between Sorcerer and Dark Knight, you never really go Sorcerer except for like really specific builds. You'll pretty much always go Dark Knight. But Hero is, I would argue, the better combat class compared to Berserker.
Yeah.
And it has a niche over Bow Knight in that it can use the hand axe, which is 1-2 range, as opposed to bows, which are just 2 range. So technically, if you really think about it, that's a way in which Hero is better than Sorcerer. I don't actually believe this, to be fair. I called it a rage bait argument for a reason, and there's some pretty notable exceptions to it, including Corrin themselves, since they don't start in any of these classes and have similar access to something like Wyvern, which does completely outclass Hero. But still, if you're looking for a physical sword or axe class, strictly speaking, you have more options to get into Hero. So if that winds up being more convenient for your support routing, say if you have a male Corrin and you can befriend Arthur who joins really early, you won't be disappointed. I do genuinely think Hero Corrin feels pretty good. It only starts looking bad in comparison to things around it.
And yeah, like hand axes are just really good in this game despite all the nerfs that they've given it from the older era FA games. Still very solid in a game with dual strikes for sure.
Berserker is a pretty good class for Corrin as well, I think, because it has a lot of strength and you can do funny stuff with high strength builds with like Strength Boon. And the best trait of it is definitely its pair-up bonuses. And Corrin is already the best pair-up in the game, so making them even better at that, it provides a really unique utility to your army. It's basically like, a lot of people really value Gunter really high because they could be a really good pair-up for Corrin specifically. Corrin is that, but for every unit in the entire game. And especially if you put them in a class like Berserker, that's a really solid, lower investment way that you can use them with only like a single free class. And that's really good.
For sure. And also for the growth, if you're going strength res Boon Bane, you're getting 75% HP growth and 85 on strength. You're also getting 60% skill, which is also really good. And even on the defensive side, it's like 40%. That's pretty solid overall. And the fact that you're getting Axe Fair on top of all of that with the higher caps that Strength Boon gives you. If you're not killing them in player phase, something else is wrong, especially in Conquest, for sure. And of course, we already mentioned it is one of the best pair bonuses for strength, especially if you're going strength res Boon Bane.
Yeah, just gives a ludicrous amount of strength and then a good amount of speed and defense and hit with supportive. I think usually it's nicer to have Corrin in a class where they're really good at combat and also support, so I think for that situation I'd probably recommend Wyvern Lord over this, but Berserker is absolutely nothing to scoff at whatsoever. If you want to fix literally any unit in the entire game, like Flora, you can do that.
The only downside really with going Berserker Corrin in a vacuum really is just, if you're going in a talent, I wouldn't do it. If it's a friendship or marriage, I would say it's at least worth touching. But as a talent, maybe not. I guess we could go to my most hated reclass. Wyvern. This is actually one of those talents I think is actually dependent on what gender you pick for Corrin. Probably the most out of like pretty much every other class here, outside of maybe one. Wyvern talent Corrin is really good if you're playing male Corrin and you're not planning on marrying certain units in the game that already have Wyvern. With female Corrin, you have so much friendship access early on by the time you do want to reclass, and Wyvern Rider Corrin is possibly one of the worst feeling Corrins. I should emphasize Wyvern Rider Corrin, not Wyvern Lord or Malignite, purely because like you're already training up your Bronze Axe rank, which applies to a lot of the other classes here, but it especially feels bad because it is Axe. The flying isn't as useful if we're super duper early classing, like chapters like 9 especially. Like you don't really benefit from a flyer. And the strength +2 doesn't super matter if you're playing male Corrin with Felicia. I suppose if you want a +4 damage stack, I could see an argument for that at least. Lunge can be nice, but it is one of those cases where you have multiple lunge users anyway. You already have solid wyverns. So early talent reclass is kind of rough. And then, yeah, with Wyvern Lord and Malig, they're definitely just solid overall. Because like Wyvern Lord, if you're focusing on rallies especially, rally defense is one of the better ones. Swordbreaker is kind of whatever. There's not too many spots where Corrin specifically wants Swordbreaker. I can see it for some other units, but definitely not Corrin, except for like Chapter 25 Ryoma. And Chapter 25 Ryoma, Corrin solo isn't even that hard in the first place with a lot of other talents. So it's not particularly unique. And then with like Malignite, it's a flying magic user, so it's going to be good. Savage Blow and Trample especially are very nice to have. And I guess another thing is with Wyvern talent, its best trait, more so for Corrin in my opinion, is to give other units Wyvern talent, especially when you're trying to get a lot of Wyverns or trying to give someone early Wyvern access, like say like Jacob or someone else.
Like Effie?
Yeah, I guess. I never thought about it, but I guess you could.
Effie is the one unit that people always talk about who doesn't have Wyvern but would really like Wyvern. I'm honestly not convinced it would be better than Archer for her, but like, it's a high strength unit in a high strength class. I could see it being really good.
Yeah, in a game where you're not going to be really fighting that many archers, except like, I swear, I think only Chapter 10 has archers in my brain. I can't remember the last time.
There's a bunch of snipers on 23.
Right. And I think there's a couple in 9, but it's like so irrelevant for flyers to want to avoid. I can at least see the argument for that. But yeah, this is definitely a talent to use to give others Wyvern more than Corrin, although Corrin does appreciate the class, except in Wyvern Rider. Don't early reclass into it. I hate it.
Early Wyvern Rider is honestly a gap in my knowledge. I've only ever reclassed into Wyvern late, but I have very positive things to say about mid and late game Wyvern Lord or Malignite Corrin. I do think they're definitely two of the best classes for Corrin to be in, especially Malignite. Malignite is definitely the best class in the game. It's the only class with flight and unrestricted 1-2 range, unless you're crazy and use Shining Bow Kinchi Nyx. I'm crazy. I do that. That's optimal, actually. But Nyx isn't very bulky, so you don't get as much benefit from the 1-2 range from that. But Corrin is bulky, so this is definitely like one of the highest ceilings for your Corrin, to have basically every trait that you could really ask for from a unit, besides like kind of middling speed and luck, but honestly it's not that big of a deal. You can boost speed really easily in this game, and obviously the skills that you get from Wyvern are like really good. And Malignite also lets Corrin keep being a mixed attacker, so you can keep using your strength stat if you want to, which like someone like Elise won't be able to. And I do really like Wyvern Lord as well. It's just a really solid physical class with a lot of strength, skill, and defense, and high mobility. And like if you've been training your Corrins like Lance or Axe rank, it can be really, really nice. I'm less positive on Wyverns that don't have those ranks, so honestly what I probably recommend for like Wyvern Lord Corrin, if that's what you're going to be doing, is probably like early reclassing into something like Fighter or like Cavalier and building up Axe or Lance rank there and then going into Wyvern. And that can be really, really, really powerful. But even just like straight Wyvern Lord is still going to be like really good. Wyvern Lord is itself a very versatile class. It has great pair up, which synergizes with supportive, it has great combat, good rallies, or one rally, and even a good positioning skill. And so it dovetails very nicely with Corrin, this unit whose selling point is their versatility. You know, you can imagine how putting the does everything unit in the does everything class would end up being pretty good at everything.
For sure. And yeah, like, again, this is one of those cases where the talent specifically isn't what makes this good. It's just the fact that the class is good and Corrin can access it regardless in Conquest.
Well, the talent definitely is good on male Corrin.
For sure.
This is the only way that male Corrin can get it. It's either marrying a really specific, highly contested unit, or befriending Percy, who you're not guaranteed to recruit.
You can get it early-ish enough to where by the time you're reclassing...
You can get it early, but I kind of hate Percy Log. It's kind of a bad map. I don't like playing it. It can also be one of those maps that is like really nice to play later on, since it's like a really nice training ground for Malignites to get like trample. If you play that after like chapter 20 and you're using like even a non-magical Malignite, like Malignite Arthur even, or Baruka, the Bolt Axe has so much bite and those Wyvern Lords have so little resistance that like that's a really nice time to start training Malignite like that. So I'm getting off track, but that's a reason why you might not always want to play Percy Log early, and also that the map sucks.
Yeah, but as I mentioned earlier, this is definitely the talent that is definitely dependent on which gender you pick for Corrin, and for male Corrin, I think this is a very valuable talent, so you can give your marriage to someone else. But for female Corrin, it is like a little redundant since you have so much easy friendship access.
Especially since Camilla is a fast support.
I remember during like the pre-2020s, Cav Corrin was very much glazed. And for Elbow Room and Shelter alone, I can see why. Having that like very early can be super duper nice. You keep your sword rank, which is already going to be pretty high. You eventually get Javelin access as well. And obviously, like, Elbow Room, Shelter, some of the best skills in the game. Like, even though you get Silas on Chapter 7, maybe you want to get those skills early in the first place, or that extra bonuses that Cav gives in regards to, you know, both movement and, you know, other weapon triangle stuff. I still wouldn't recommend doing it. I'd probably just go into, like, Paladin or even Great Knight. Great Knight Corrin is actually not that bad, honestly, but it is one of those cases where I'm just not really very huge on the promoted Cav line. I'm more of a fan of the base class Cavs.
Great Knight is, I think, the highest strength sword class in the game, besides maybe Hoshido Noble, which you can't get in this game. And that can be really nice if you want to maximize your Grim Yato damage. So I know people like value that for the Takumi kill. I'm not the kind of person who values Takumi kills, but it's something that Great Knight's good for. And if you're reclassing Corrin really early on, like chapter 7 or 8, I think Cavalier Talent is honestly the best one for that specific purpose. Since it keeps your sword rank, so you can keep using the Yato, and it lets you train up your lance rank, which can be really nice if you're planning on going into something like Wyvern. And Elbow Room, Shelter are two of the best skills in the game, so that's really nice to just dip for those. And Cavalier's just really, really strong in the early game, and that's why Silas is so good there.
Yeah, like the early game is definitely like out of all of these classes, I'm looking at every single one on the Norian side. Yeah, for sure. Just for Elbow Room and Shelter alone, as I said like multiple times, we can't stop reiterating this point. It's just that good.
I think slightly better on female Corrin than male Corrin, since male Corrin can get here through Silas friendship, but it's still like pretty nice on both of them. And I kind of want to shill Paladin a bit here. So Paladin is like Hero, but with 2 more movement. And lances instead of axes. And the weapon difference is a little bit bad, but honestly, I kind of like Paladin Corrin. It's outclassed, obviously. It's worse than Bone Knight and Wyvern. But, is it worse? Is it strictly outclassed by Wyvern? Because sword rank is something that Corrin has been building since she has the Yato, so that's honestly, like, pretty nice. She could probably get to, like, Brave Sword rank pretty easily if you just keep her in sword classes. And that could be, like, pretty solid. And let's not forget the Levin Sword, which can actually do a pretty decent chunk of damage with Elbow Room. That's always going to be a great weapon for Corrin to take into really any sword class. So, actually, if we think about it that way, the Giga Brain take is that Dark Knight is what really outclasses Paladin. But, you know, Dark Knight can't use the Brave Sword, so I still get my Copium. Yes!
I have ran a Paladin Corrin once or twice. I did have to go into Great Knight during the mid game because I was playing Rev, but for sure, Paladin Corrin is going to be solid. I don't think you're going to be like blown away by a Paladin Corrin, but I don't think you'll be mad about it either. Like, I think she's just solid, kind of like where Hero is. Like, you can never really be that surprised by it.
Yeah, Paladin's it's pretty nice. It's like high mobility, high strength Grim Yato damage. I had a really funny playthrough one time where I had a Soul Ninja Corrin going that I was kind of hating, and then I reclassed them into Paladin, and it was better. I liked it more. Like, it genuinely contributed more to my playthrough.
That's kind of real.
That was hilarious. So, yeah, I'm probably a little bit biased in favor of Paladin Corrin just for that, but, like, honestly, it's pretty nice. I do really like that high mobility sword class.
For sure, for sure. I guess we could go towards the knight talent real quick here, because this is probably the one Nohrian talent you definitely should not get into. Well,
No, you shouldn't. It's bad.
I can't think of anything. Yeah.
I think Knight is the only useless talent.
Yeah, you get FE for marriage or friendship. I don't think the skills here on Knight are gonna be that worthwhile when Dragonstone kind of reaches them anyway.
Weary Fighter is bad on Corrin since, like, obviously Corrin has good speed, so...
It's not doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything, and it takes away the opportunity for them to double. And then Pavis, Luna, Armored Blow, all of these are bad for, like, their proc skills or their Armored Blow.
I will mention with Wary Fighter, every Conquest tends to have like occasional Wary Fighter users because it is a relatively popular skill, especially on the tanks, like Nosferatu tanks, because they were popular for a good while. And most of the time, Wary Fighter hampered Nos tanks, or like whatever they wanted to switch to another weapon for like player phase. So it's definitely a case where like, yeah, just don't even think about it. It's not even worth passing down, really. Same with like the other knight skills. Like literally a Benny or Effie can be in the same role and do significantly better with the same access. Corrin in particular just doesn't benefit like at all on any of these skills, because like you see Luna over there, you know what typically does more damage? Dragon Fang. Armored Blow, Corrin's probably gonna kill them anyway. Corrin's not a unit that is like afraid of player phasing like almost ever, especially when they're full health. So Armored Blow isn't really doing anything for them.
Yeah, defense +2 and natural cover are good skills, and that's the only benefit of the knight class. Besides, I guess Great Knight, but like Cavalier is just better for that.
Yeah.
Like, I see the reasoning for General to, like, min-max a really tanky unit, but, like, you get Benny for free. You could just use Benny.
No, literally. And in a game without Guard Navanata, it's even worse as a result. I think I can at least see an argument for General talent in Birthright, because he can't normally access it. But in Conquest in particular, especially, I don't see any niche or, you know, fun ideas you could do with it, because you already get two knights that have like decent support access across the cast.
Yeah. And then the other talent that I know a lot of people think is really, really bad is Troubadour talent. But honestly, I kind of like Troubadour Corrin. I don't know if I'd necessarily think Troubadour talent is the best thing ever, but I don't think it's the worst.
Troubadour Corrin's nice.
Because Troubadour is like a really good support class, and I do really like building my Corrins towards support. Like, especially like strategists. You get like Demoiselle, Rally Resistance, Inspiration. That's all like really good.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a really good part of like a support build, and honestly, I could see going Troubadour talent for especially male Corrin if you are not planning on marrying the first servant, which is boring, so that makes sense why you wouldn't. Like, female Corrin can get a fast support with Elise, so in that case, probably don't go Troubadour talent, since Elise joins really early. But like, for male Corrin, the fastest way you're gonna get that is through like Jacob 2, who sucks and joins in chapter 16. So I think there's a reason to go Troubadour talent, and especially a reason to go into Troubadour class.
Yeah, I was thinking about Dwyer as another support access, but then I realized like we're talking about male Corrin here. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
I mean, to be fair, on the topic of like the servants do have really good personal skills for Corrin: Devoted Partner and Evasive Partner, which boost their stats by a lot. Like, Devoted Partner is +2 damage dealt, -2 damage taken, and then Evasive Partner is -3 damage taken and +15 avoid. And those are really good, so those can be really good parabots for Corrin, so it's pretty easy to build a servant support if you're just relegating them to the parabot role. But if you play more aggressively, attack stancy, it can be a little bit harder.
I think the main thing is, I would say Troubadour alone is definitely kind of rough for the early game. Losing another attacker for just another staffer is definitely sucky, unless you really want another Demoiselle user or like another movement with Cav movement, but again, Cav already exists over there. But for sure, like Strategist and Maid in particular are like actually not that bad. I ran a Maid Corrin once, and mixed attacker. So having both flame shuriken and like a physical dagger access that are both like really good, along with staff access with Corrin's, like if you're going like skill boon or whatever with offensive stays, like that's really good. So you're never gonna be feeling bad with mid Corrin. I think its only downside really is like there's another dagger unit that's on the other slide over there. The big slide elephant in the room. But ignoring that, I think what Maid can offer for Corrin kind of evens it out by a bit. Tonebreaker, I guess, can be nice if your Corrin's res is that bad. If you're just gonna stay in Maid anyway, then you're not gonna cry if you have Tonebreaker, especially in like 26 or whatever. Strategist Corrin, again, you already mentioned with the Rally and Inspiration, Gentillon and Demoiselle. Like, those are good skills to have in a support role. And having the Tome access is really good. Having Staff access. You're never gonna feel bad about switching them. It's just, yeah, like, don't reclass early. That's literally our only thing. Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Honestly, I could see, like, for the support kit alone, a few traits that Maid, like, does have over, like, Master Ninja Mechanist.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to get into, like, why I really like support Corrin. Because obviously, Corrin's personal skill is really geared towards support. It's called supportive for a reason. It's really going to help a lot of your army as soon as you can, like, build a C-support with them, which is, like, really easy to do. It just takes a map, or even if you're playing with private quarters, not even necessarily private quarters of use, just regular private quarters, which you just use once every map. It's just really fast to just get a lot of C-supports building really quickly, and so you can really get a lot of units benefiting from that. And then if you want to build your Corrin around that supportive role, getting more support skills can be really good, and Corrin is especially good at getting a lot of skills like that because they can build friendships with as many people as you want. As soon as you get an A support with a unit of the same gender that isn't Niles, you get their base class through a friendship seal. And so Corrin's the only unit that can get more than one class through friendship in the same playthrough. And so it's really easy for them to just get like a ton of rallies or a ton of support skills. And so it's really easy to build like a completely unmatched support unit with Corrin in a lot of ways. And I don't really mind giving up a really powerful combat unit in exchange because you're not really lacking game-breaking combat units at all in this game. So that support utility can be a bit more unique in comparison. I think it is still considered off-meta, and for pretty fair reasons. Paradoxically, in some cases, it can be easier to take advantage of supportive on just, say, a combat Wyvern Lord, since you can easily just pair into someone else whenever you're not seeing combat, whereas support Corrin might be occupied with providing rallies on the back lines, but I do think their class access is genuinely really admirable for these kinds of builds, so I recommend, at the very least, playing around with it. I also really like staff access on Corrin. It can be a little bit hard to build it because obviously staff XP isn't very good and staffs are kind of underpowered. But once you get to like D rank staffs, one thing that I think is like not talked about with staff Corrin is she could use that on chapter 25 when she's stuck in the Ryoma room. If you're not playing on Dueling Ryoma, which you shouldn't be because chapter 25 is a really good map. Don't skip it. I promise it's really good. That's a way you can get Corrin to actually contribute to the clear. Like freeze a Master Ninja on the left side. And that can help you clear that side of the map easier, or be able to have more units on the right side. And so that's honestly really nice. It's a surprisingly unique contribution from like Strategist or Maid Corrin.
Yeah, I'm definitely very huge on Maid Corrin in particular. You already mentioned the Master Ninja thing, but yeah, again, like all the utility stuff, and again, the support access, you already mentioned 25. Those are all very incredibly useful skills to have. Just maybe not on a talent. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
And I guess another talent here is Dark Mage. Okay. It's a good... I don't know. Is it a good talent?
It's a good class. I don't think it's a good talent.
Yeah.
Because...
yeah, you get so many.
You get 2 Dark Mages who join early, one of each gender, so it's really, really easy to just get Dark Mage through friendship, like, instantly.
Yeah.
Not to mention Leo, who's a fast support, and Ophelia, who, I mean, is also there. So I don't think it's something I would spend a talent on. The niche for Dark Mage talent is, well, if your friendship seal economy is really tight, then, like, fair.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because the parallel class of Dark Mage is Diviner, if you marry a Dark Mage and you have Dark Mage talent, that will give them Diviner. But, like, just go Diviner talent. That's better, because then Corrin gets Diviner too.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the Vider in a moment, or after a while, because we got 2 more to go through. But yeah, in regards to Dark Mage as a class for Corrin, like if we're going Magic, like this is just solid. Dark Knight especially. Sorcerer, definitely not at all. Vengeance is, I don't know, to make Vengeance really work, especially on a Corrin, you probably don't want to use a talent for Dark Mage, especially. And Bowbreaker isn't useful in Conquest. After like 24 especially, I don't think there's a single relevant archer that'll like kill you. And yeah, with Dark Knight, I believe that's Seal Magic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's Seal Magic, which you're not gonna really benefit much off of. But Life Taker, like that's genuinely very nice, especially because Corrin is typically going to 1-round KO a lot of units, especially if you're, you know, consistently keeping up with their investment. And Heartseeker, Malefic Aura, like those are just 2 very solid skills to have, especially early on. Corrin still has hit rate issues early on, so yeah, Heartseeker can help with that. Especially if you're just dipping into Dark Mage, like getting Heartseeker and then going back to either base or, you know, any other physical or even magic class. It does genuinely contribute. And then yeah, Malefic Aura is +2 damage for free.
Heartseeker is a really, really good skill to dip for in any kind of Corrin build. Like, literally any of them. It's even a good support skill, so support Corrins like it too.
Yeah, they're bulky enough to where you're not really afraid either to just put them in case you still miss even after that.
And Dark Knight is a really, really solid combat class. It's like Nohr Noble, but with 2 more movement, and it has, like, Heartseeker, so it doesn't have hit issues. And I think it also has better skill as well. So that's, like, really, really good. It's one of the better Corrin classes. It's technically outclassed by Malignite, but honestly not really, because Heartseeker is just that good.
Yeah, and Dark Knight, from my experience, tends to mix tank a little bit better than Malig, especially in certain paralogs, so that can be nice. Life Taker helps.
And it has the sword rank, so it'll be able to use the 11 sword, which Corrin obviously has the weapon rank for, so that's really nice for the extra damage if you want that. So, Sorcerer, we kind of trashed Sorcerer earlier, and I think that's at least somewhat warranted. I don't think it's a good class in comparison to Dark Knight, but it does technically have a niche that I know a lot of people talk about, and that's Nosferatu, on Corrin specifically. My thing with Nosferatu a little bit is, like, I already talked about Nosferatu on Odin in depth a little bit, whereas on someone like Leo or Nyx, I think the hit rates are too sketchy to be worth it. For someone like Ophelia, it does pretty similar stuff to Vantage in trying to survive attacks, but Vantage is low-key cheaper because it only costs 1 seal on Odin, which is 2,000 gold, and Nosferatu is 4,000 gold. And it lets you use more accurate weapon types in fire. But Corrin does have the niche with Nosferatu in that they're not always going Samurai talent. So they're a Dark Mage that doesn't always have that better option in Vantage. So, like, that's a situation where if you want the kind of things that Vantage can provide, then Nosferatu might be the play. But honestly, I don't think the extra tankiness is ever really necessary, especially because Dark Knight just has a bunch more defense outright. And the fact that it can benefit from guard gauge a lot easier. It's honestly not that much tankier in practice, or any tankier in some cases. So I don't love Nosferatu on Corrin, but if you're able to one-shot stuff with it, then, like, I don't hate it on principle. I just don't think it's really that great in practice, yeah.
I guess for a Beyond Sorcerer, we could trash how useful it is, but I'll never diss the outfit. I think they look great. But yeah, I suppose the main thing you would actually be benefiting in comparison to Dark Knight really is almost entirely skewed towards the growth rates, especially if you are heavy player phasey, because it does give you like 70% in magic, which if you're Corrin, even with Magic Boon, is starting to fall behind, because at the end of the day, I think they usually get like 55-ish. If you want to kind of just guarantee that you're gonna reach cap, I would at least say dip into it. Maybe not end with it, but dip into it, especially because sorcerer skills aren't super duper enticing. This is almost purely like for the player phasers who want to get the extra boost in magic. Para bonus wise, I don't even think sorcerer is better than Dark Knight in a lot of cases, because it's the difference of like 2 magic, and they give mostly the same buffs, except sorcerer gives significantly more res, whereas Dark Knight gives more defense. And if you know us, we definitely value defense a little bit more here. And the fact that you also get movement +1, which kind of prioritizes almost everything else.
Yeah, as resident player phaser, Dark Knight's movement is way more impactful than Sorcerer's magic. But, like, I could see if you're not going magic Boon, then maybe the extra magic could be impactful. So that's a situation where maybe you might want to go Sorcerer. I guess that's one of the easier ways to have a magical Corrin that is both strong and fast. You could go Speed Boon Sorcerer, maybe? I don't know, I haven't tested that, that could be interesting. It's definitely less special than it sounds though, because Corrin has Levensword rank, so they can make up the damage difference in Dark Knight really easily by just using that. Or if you want a high magic, high speed class, you can just go Adventurer.
You're not going to really hate it at all. In fact, you probably would get good results. It's just that Dark Knight, arguably, especially if you have good levels prior, it's just going to be better. Sorcerer might be good for like the mid game at the very least, since that would help you with your growth rate points. And then you can just swap to Dark Knight by the end, because Life Taker is really, really sexy for Corrin. So you definitely want that.
And then the last talent we have to talk about here, the last Nohrian talent, is Outlaw, which I think is probably the best Nohrian talent.
Between all of them, yes, I definitely agree.
Yeah, bows are a really, really good weapon type in this game, because there's a lot of situations where bows can actually see large enemy phases, and they also just have really good stats. They have a lot of might and accuracy, so bows are really good in this game. And also the skills from Outlaw are incredible. Move +1 is like the rare mobility boosting skill, actually the only mobility boosting skill, and like Lucky 7's +20 hit and avoid on the first 7 turns. And most maps aren't honestly going to be taking longer than 7 turns, or at least a lot longer than 7 turns.
When the hit rates matter, the first 7 turns is the only, you know, you're probably getting rid of all the really hard ones out of the way with Lucky 7 in particular. Pass is not amazing, but I don't think most people go into Adventure for Pass in the first place. And yeah, like Bow Knight is just one of the best classes in the game outright. Like you get Cav movement, Rally skill, Shuriken Breaker, and like, you know, Lock Touch can be nice, especially if you're playing a very aggressive Corrin. If you're pushing ahead, even just dipping into Outlaw for certain classes, like say you're a flyer Corrin, like getting Lock Touch is just very nice. Once again, you mentioned movement +1, like it being another instance where support Corrin is very, very nice to have. That you get supportive and move +1. And yeah, like bows are good. And Bow Knight, you keep your sword access, so if you still want to use like Yato or Levensword, it can be nice if you're Levensword 1-2 ranging. That I guess you could use it for that.
I don't have too much to say about Adventure. It's kind of just your standard bow class, and I think for combat, Bow Knight is a lot better in just the raw stats and movement. Adventure's mostly a skill dip class. Even for the person that I really recommend going in here next, I think it's mostly just a skill dip class. But that's still a good role. I'd still recommend going Adventure a lot of the time because Lucky 7 is just that impactful. And the combat can be pretty serviceable while you're in here, especially if you train up to C rank bows so you can use the Shining Bow, because Adventure is pretty solid magic.
I guess on my end, yeah, Lucky 7 is definitely the most valuable thing you're gonna get out of Adventure, but you're getting staves, you're getting bows, you're getting more enticing skills. I mean, no notes. I guess, like, if we're talking about, like, oh, you know, there's the big Niles, where it's like, how do we get it without the talent? And aside from Niles, there's Shura. There's Shura and Nina, I guess, if you really want to get just a friendship for a male and female Corrin, which those have varying levels of trade-offs. I think with female Corrin Nina, it's just gonna take like a while to get there, and same with Shura, but Shura you're also losing out and getting boots in exchange for like an alright-ish unit with a killer bow. So it just depends on what you value as a player. Like if you want a friendship or, you know, marry Shura, then I think you shouldn't need to go to Outlaw talent. But if you're not planning on that, yeah, Outlaw talent, like out of all the Nohrian classes, is like the one to go for it because it's so hard to get relative to the other classes here.
Yeah, Outlaw has really bad distribution. It being on Niles specifically is really bad since you can't befriend Niles.
Yeah!
Niles is like one of 2 bisexual units in this game, so Niles can S-support male Corrin, but not befriend him.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give up a really contested marriage partner in Niles if you want to get it through him. And then the other options are Nina, which is like a relatively late joining second generation unit, and that's gonna be really tough. And it's especially bad for male Corrin because Shura, the boots.
It's rough out there, man.
So yeah, Outlaw talent is just really good to increase the number of Outlaws you can have in your army, since Outlaw is an incredible class. You always want more of it. It's just really good.
Yeah, I think the only argument against Bone Knights, or I guess like of the Outlaw talent in general, is that you do get like a lot of units that go into Bone Knight, but that's like literally it. Hey, having more of the same of some of the best classes in the game, oh no, especially on Corrin.
Oh no, what will I do? Alright, so now we can move on to the Hoshiden classes, which are generally much harder to access in Conquest because it's the Nohrian route. So a lot of these classes are classes you can only get through Corrin, or basically only get through Corrin.
Yeah, these are what I like to call the fun talents in Conquest, for sure. Yeah, I guess we could start with the one that I am notorious for always picking in my runs, Samurai talent. Samurai talent, if your goal is to beat the game, yeah, just go Samurai talent. You can never hurt. It's like one of the most straightforward ways of getting a Takumi kill, especially because Corrin is always available. There's no opportunity losses really, because you're just playing Corrin normally. Duelist Blow isn't super useful on Corrin. Vantage can be occasionally. Astra can be nice. Swordfare is the main thing I think most people would want out of the Samurai line. Seal Strength is also whatever. Life and Death is just good, especially if you want to use it to pass down to certain kids or, give other people access to Samurai talent. That's sort of the main benefits. It's a very boring class, but it's a very straightforward. You're not going to really suffer for going this class like at all. And the extra boost to speed means you don't have to go speed boon or anything like that. And the pair up. And the pair up's nice.
Samurai is just your classic sword class, and Corrin has innate sword rank, so they're gonna be able to use their best weapon rank in this class. I am kind of low on Samurai talent. I'm sorry, Dave.
Duh! I mean, I get it.
I think the biggest niche for Samurai is definitely the Takumi kill, but the Takumi kill isn't really something I care about that much. It's definitely the easiest way to go about it. You don't actually need Samurai talent on Corrin to get there. Like Great Knight already has just a really high strength base, and Shadow Yato even has a lot of might and cuts through dragon skin, so that makes the Takumi one run a lot easier. So you don't super need Swordfare, Life and Death for that Takumi kill. You just get skills like, even just like Elbow Room. A plus strength Corrin can get there reasonably easily, but if you want to make it like super duper free, then like, yeah, go Samurai talent. I think that's the main reason you want to be going there.
Yeah, the fact that it costs no friendships or marriages. If you want to play a selfish Corrin, this is definitely the one. And obviously the speed pair up is also like a really big boon to a lot of units, in particular because there are certain Conquest units that would like that extra speed boost, unless your name is Kaze.
A speed pair up class is really nice on Corrin since supportive boosts every stat except for speed.
Yeah.
So if you go into stuff like Sword Master or Master Ninja, then your Corrin is boosting every stat, and that's really nice.
It's a very straightforward class. There is something to be said about, like, I guess Master of Arms' weapon access, but even then, it's like, nothing too crazy. Corrin's availability does mean you get S rank with Swordmaster, but do you really want to?
You can't use the Hagakure blade, so whatever. Vantage is not a strategy I'm particularly high on, but I think it is worth noting that Corrin is the only unit that can get Vantage that isn't a mage. And Kaze, who has low-ish strength, so isn't usually the best user of Vantage. So they're like the rare possible physical Vantage user, and that could be a niche that they can have, and we're going to be talking about that a bit later.
I like Vantage more so for guard gauge building occasionally, but it's definitely like, for the people that like Vantage, this is definitely also a talent to go into for sure. But I value getting a Takumi kill because haha lore reasons. That's just me, that's a personal thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it on Samurai. It's just very straightforward, not much to say other than the fact that like it'll do the job that you want it to do. Diviner talent. This is one that I'm pretty high on. Ant is also pretty high on as well.
Yeah, I think Diviner is one of the best Hoshiden talents because of the skills specifically. Magic plus 2 is just straight up good damage stack. Rally Magic is a rare, really good Hoshiden rally. It just straight up boosts a bunch of attack of units like Leo, and like Odin, and I mean, Nyx doesn't need it, but you know, Nyx. Tome Fair, +5 damage when you're using a tome, it's incredible.
Another thing you mentioned, Omnioji has staff access, which also helps the 25 offensive save thing. Omnioji, in Conquest especially, is really good because you're not guaranteed staff access like at all. And Omnioji is just, you know, relatively solid and has really good skills with Rally Magic and Tome Fair. So it ends up being just a really solid class, and it's an amazing class to pass down to like other Dark Mages especially. You can't really complain about it. Vasara is good for Quixotic specifically, in my opinion. I'm not super high on it, mostly because it's lances. Like, the Tome Access is nice. It just gets outclassed. In Conquest, it's especially rough because you get 2 of any skill. So most people wouldn't go into Basara because you could just get Quixotic anyway. And Rend Heaven is sort of a whatever skill in Conquest especially, or really any route. That doesn't help that much in most cases.
Quixotic is an incredible skill because it's free +30 hit, and even the -30 avoid can be helpful. On Corrin especially, since getting Corrin below half HP also helps Silas. So that's a way to like keep Vow of Friendship relevant later on. And then the accuracy is just incredible. And you can even do some funny stuff with the extra skill proc chance.
It's one of the best skills in the game for a reason. Its only downside is how late it comes and how rare it is in Conquest. Like, that's kind of it.
Well, also, Basara has really bad power bonuses.
Yeah!
It's +5 luck, +3 res, which sucks. It's so bad.
It's consistently one of my weakest classes in Conquest because of that, because I can't even use it as a pair-up niche. It's like, oh.
As opposed to Onmyoji, which is +4 speed, +4 magic, which is incredible.
It's so good, man. Like, Diviner Talent's so good. Like, if nothing else, to give it to like the other Dark Mages who could definitely use like those skills in particular.
The units who benefit the most from Corrin's Diviner Talent are the middling magic stat trio of Odin, Niles, and Camilla. Mostly Niles and Camilla, in my opinion, because they have really good traits outside of their magic stat and just enough magic to where enough stacking can take them to an incredibly high ceiling with that unrestricted 1-2 range. So they benefit from getting magic +2 and Tome Fair on themselves, and getting Corrin to click Rally Magic on them. Meaning, this talent can enable some really nutty stuff, and obviously, anyone who wants more hit will really appreciate Quixotic. On Myoji, it doesn't have incredible combat stats, like at all. Its stats are actually kind of bad, but it has a lot of utility and tome access, so that can honestly be pretty good.
It's never gonna be too horrifically bad, even though it's like not the greatest combat class. Like, it's still Corrin. They're still gonna have cracked out stacks.
So Diviner Talent it's usually not something you're gonna be seeing in long term unless you're based, but it is incredible for skills. So it's a really good talent since you don't have any other access to Diviner in Conquest, except for specifically Nyx Nina. That's the only other unit that gets Diviner.
Yeah, you're right. I guess that that makes sense, yeah. Alright, Archer.
Ooh, back-to-back really good talents.
Yeah, Archer is very similar-ish in my mind as Samurai, if it was even better in some cases, especially earlier on, in my opinion, because Samurai is one that really matters later on in mid-game, whereas Archer is a class that like early game till late game just maintains its usefulness. Obviously their skill +2, quick draw, like if it wasn't Cav, I would put that as like one of the highest base class, like in terms of like what skills they can give. And it's an Archer, which is a very valuable class in Conquest, not only for just Corrin, but also to pass down to others. Sniper, you get Certain Blow, which is really, really, really good. And Bow Fair, which it's a little redundant on a bow, but even then, like, they're still gonna do cracktastic damage. And, you know, Kinshi is good for, you know, getting that air superiority usage if you want that for like 20 and 24. And Amaterasu adds to support Corrin. I don't think most people would get that much usage out of it, but it's still nice for sure. And flying bow unit, like, who could say no to that?
Archer talent is the other best talent in the game, in my opinion. Perhaps unsurprisingly. You're telling me this Nyx fan likes Outlaw and Archer? What? Unbelievable.
Curious.
Sniper's just a solid bow class. It's like a lot of damage, a lot of speed, a lot of accuracy. It's just really good. I don't think it's better than Kinshi Knight, but you don't hate being in this class at all.
For sure. And getting access to quick draw and bowfare and certain blow, yes please. For sure. You're definitely not going to hate this class. I'd have to look at their pair-up bonuses real quick.
I think it's strength, skill, and speed.
Strength, skill, speed, yeah, those are, you're not going to really hate those, although admittedly, like, Kinshi's movement +1 might still be more desirable overall.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, one thing I want to talk about with Archer and also Sky Knight Corrin is like the only unit who can get both quick draw and darting blow at the same time with like an Azura friendship. And that can be really, really good to just give them a ton of like +4 strength, +5 speed on player phase, and that really helps them fall into this role compared to someone like Silas, because Corrin does have pretty similar growth to Silas, but being able to get these skills really just takes them over the edge. And yeah, the skills from it are incredible. You get just like +9 damage stack from just quick draw bowfare, just a ton, and then ridiculous +43 accuracy, 73 technically against some enemies. Archer is like the best player phase class in the game, and for someone who does rely a lot on player phase combat, that's just incredible. And like Gage is like really fast, and you get a lot of strength skill, so Corrin can be like a really, really solid player phaser. Really, my only complaint is it doesn't take advantage of Corrin's bulk stats as well. So honestly, for some situations, if you want a flying class, I could recommend going Wyvern Lord or Malignite over this. But it's just incredible, and it's what you really value getting more of in Conquest, since your only other access to it comes from Mozu, and Mozu's friends and husband. So giving it to other glass cannon units who can't normally access it, like Perry and Charlotte, can be really good.
Yeah, it's such a good talent that it's worthwhile getting it just to pass on to other people. Like, that's just how good it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, everything here on the top row, I definitely super like, for sure. Now down to, we went from some of my favorite classes to Oni. If you like para bonuses, Oni is nice. I remember hearing something about it being like the potential highest defensive Corrin out there, but I've never been able to fact check this. Admittedly, Corrin as Oni Chieftain mitigates some of the problems that like your other typical Onis might have in regards to bulky but low damage, because Corrin can dish out decent-ish damage. It's just that it just gets outclassed by Dark Knight, or really any defensive-oriented class. And the skills that you get, the Oni line in general is just super not nice, like, at all. I don't see much benefit from almost any of them outside of like maybe Shove and like Death Blow if you care about crits. Lancebreaker, like, when when that's my question, when. I believe that's counter, and counter is a skill that's mostly only helpful for the enemies than you using it yourself, especially on like the unit that is a game over condition. I've seen people use it as a cheeky Ryoma kill, but like, unless you're trying to be cheeky, I don't see a reason for going this build outside of like, yeah, for the memes.
Yeah, there are a lot of better ways to kill Ryoma, like Swordbreaker, Savage Blow, Poison Strike, or beating the map normally. You should do that one. I recommend that one.
I mean, honestly, I definitely also recommend doing that one. You know, just get comfortable clearing it once, because the hardest part about 25 is figuring it out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I could say that as someone who recently cleared 25 fully normally.
The Oni promotions are not that great for combat. They're kind of just worse versions of other classes. Oni Chieftain has the same weapon types as Malignite, but a lot less accuracy, and obviously a lot less mobility. So Malignite is almost always better, unless you want to go for like a funny crit build or something with Death Blow. That's like the only use case I can think of. Besides, I guess, the pair-up.
The pair-up is really, really good, and as you already mentioned, Death Blow. Yeah, for Corrin in particular, in player phase, it's definitely pretty solid, especially if you're using like a killer weapon, which Conquest does have access to, and it is better than the Great Club if you're staying in this class. And you do get access to Horse Spirit, so it does help boost up the bulk, but again, there's a thing where we're comparing it to the bulk of like Dark Knight and Malignite, which more often than not will just have better offenses.
I would certainly not go as far as calling Death Blow good, but I would call it pretty fun. I enjoy using it. It's just that crits are really hard to take advantage of unless you can get them to 100%, and it's really hard to get crits to 100% in this game. I think only Ophelia can actually do it, like, reliably. So that definitely hurts Corrin. Overall, crit builds are about as niche as it gets, which is a kind way of saying they're bad. It is always strictly easier to just get the raw attack and speed you need to kill the enemy rather than boosting up your crit. But if you haven't done one, I do at least recommend trying it, because I think it's pretty funny.
That's sort of all really there is, aside from the pair-up bonuses, which is nice, especially stacked with supportive.
The pair-up utility of Oni Chieftain is definitely very notable. It's +4 strength and +4 defense. And if you combine that with a plus strength minus res, pair-up, and supportive, that is a truly overwhelming amount of strength and defense from a single pair-up. So putting that on someone like Kaze allows you to just completely decimate any enemy group, and that's pretty good. But strength and defense pair-up is not really unique. General, Great Knight, Wyvern Lord just kind of has it. And I honestly think Wyvern Lord and Great Knight especially are better pair-up classes than Oni because they also give that extra movement. But I've done it. Like, I've had fun with Oni Chieftain Corrin. I honestly don't hate it in a vacuum. I just think it's definitely outclassed.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in Birthright, but in Conquest, it's just kind of rough. And you definitely notice it a lot in, like, my Corrin quest runs, where more often than not, in a vacuum, yeah, like Ant says, like, it'll do fine. You're not gonna super duper hate it, but when you're looking at some other units that have like similar roles, they just do the same thing but better, and it ends up just not working out in the long term, especially when the skills that they eventually grow into aren't super desirable. Blacksmith, it's just worse hero.
Yeah, the stats and the weapon access is almost the same as hero. The skills, Shove is probably a little bit worse than HP +5 with Strong Riposte, but it's kind of close. Shove is definitely at least a lot more unique than those skills, so I can see that being a draw of Blacksmith. But Hero is just so much more accessible in Conquest. You can get it through Laszlo, or Zelina, or Arthur, or Charlotte. So going Oni talent just for the purposes of attaining a sword and axe class is really not the play, I feel.
Yeah, again, I think the most useful skills in this entire talent line is Shove and kind of Death Blow. Lancebreaker is just kind of unfortunate because
the lance enemies that you're going to be fighting later on are mostly generals, which don't have a lot of avoid anyway, so Lancebreaker doesn't help you that much against them. But it can at least be nice against Spearmasters and Falcon Knights, or, you know, for the avoid.
So more often than not, I don't think it's gonna super duper help you. I guess for magical stuff, it could be something with the Bolt Naganata, but it's one of the weakest breakers for sure. So I don't think someone would go into this line just to get Lancebreaker. I guess the one niche is if you really, really can't kill Hinoka, you're really scared of Luna procs, and you just happen to have Lancebreaker. That's kind of it. That's all I got.
It's not something to spend a talent on just for that, but if you're going this talent anyway for the funnies, then it can contribute. Oni talent has a niche, but it's a really small one. And I think that niche is exactly Shove and Salvage Blow. Shove is a pretty good positioning skill. It lets you, like, move a unit one tile farther, and sometimes that can make the difference. I do think Oni talent is one of the worst talents, but I've used it twice, and I don't know what that says about me. But it does at least allow me to confirm that Shove definitely comes up. Like, it's useful. But you can also just capture a generic Oni or Kumagera for that if you really want it. So, I don't know. It's not really that great. And Salvage Blow, just go Merchant. Just get Profiteer. That's better. Do that one.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you happen to get something, like, you get a Clutch Forge, like, you're like, oh man, I could really use that extra bronze weapon.
No, the thing with Salvage Blow is it only gives you Hoshiden weapons, so you can't forge them.
Ah! Yeah, no, it's cooked. It's cooked, yeah. Get Profiteer. Yeah, I guess we could move on from that. Let's go to a talent that's, like, actually useful for other niche cases. Monk or Shrine Maiden. I mean, it's a good... It just helps with Corrin's support class role. Even going to Omnioji, it's not as stark of a difference from Diviner compared to like some other classes that have tied promotion classes. Like it's not as bad because like you get rally luck at least, which can be helpful in certain cases where you're worried about crits or accuracy. The main reason to get this talent though is for renewal. Renewal is just a good skill. Its only downside is it's tied to Priestess and Great Master, and the combat stats are also not that bad, but that's also coming from me who's only used like Azama Great Master. There's surprisingly not that many Great Master Corrins out there. I've seen more Priestess Corrins, admittedly. Counter magic
sucks.
Same thing with counter. Like, yeah, it's not gonna help you. Like, oh, but Corrin's low res. Like, no, it's not. Stop. It's not gonna happen. It's just a very straightforward. Like, you get it for renewal and go into Omnioji later for other more useful things. That's kind of it.
I think Monk and Shrine Maiden talent is honestly really good. It's kind of on par with Diviner, I would say.
Really?
Because of the skills. Yeah, they're both skill dip classes.
I'd put it slightly lower.
That seems fair to me. Rally Luck, Rally Magic is like incredible for a support-oriented Corrin, or even just some other support-oriented unit that you give Corrin marriage to. And like Tome Fair, even without Magic +2, that's still like an incredible damage stack. And Renewal is 30% healing on every turn, and that's a lot. That's gonna add up really fast, so you'll never really need to expend any staff uses on Corrin. They kind of just heal automatically, and that's really nice. That's a really nice, like, quality of life skill.
For sure. And it's definitely a class that I would probably recommend for people who want to pass down talents to other units, especially. Just for renewal alone, and like you do get Tome Fair and Rally Magic. Like, if it isn't gonna be Diviner, like if you don't care about Quixotic, yeah, go Monk, Priestess, because those are really good talents for passing down skills.
And even for combat, Great Master isn't very good because Lances aren't very good, but Priestess is honestly, like, pretty solid. It has really good stats, like, insanely good stats. And bow access, and you don't get the Bolt Magnata in Conquest, but you do get the Shining Bow, so that can be really good for Priestess Corrin. And honestly, I've seen some, like, really good combat Juggernaut Priestesses out there. It kind of just works. It's pretty solid. Unless you're already planning to have like 2 or 3 other Shining Bow users, Priestess is honestly just like a really solid class. Compared to Adventurer, I don't think the skills are as good, but the stats are better, so that's nice.
Yeah, and also you could just marry Niles or, someone else to get like some of the other like adventure skills if you really cared about it. So that's the fun part about Corrin, guys. So yeah, now comes a really, really good talent, Ninja. Ninja, you get dagger access, you keep swords if you're going Master Ninja, and you get bow access and Mechanist. You get Lock Touch, pretty solid Poison Strike, which can be situationally very nice in certain maps. Lethality is whatever. I don't like using Lethality. It's caused me more harm than good. Shuriken Fair is also really good, if nothing else, to like pass down to like another dagger focused unit. And again, this is a great talent to pass down to certain units that do want that. Silas is one that I might try in another run, so I don't have to deal with the Kaze friendship access as much, because I already marry Silas in a lot of my runs anyway, so it just kind of ends up being that way. Replicate, amazing skill. It's one of the best for a reason. Having 2 Corrins, especially if you're going like a support Corrin, like that's just really nice. Replicate is just good on Corrin, especially because convoy access is shared, I believe, so you could like do a lot of chicanery with convoy access to like across other units if you're splitting your forces up. Golem Bane can be nice for like a couple chapters. It's just underwhelming on Kaze specifically, so my opinion of it was lowered greatly due to that. But I think with the right build, you could definitely make that skill work. But the main thing that you'd want out of this is definitely the dagger 1-2 range, high speed, good player phase and enemy phase ability. It's a good talent. I have much more to say on my end.
Ninja is the best physical Juggernaut class because it has unrestricted 1-2 range and better speed than Maid. And it gets Shuriken Fair, which is free +5 damage. It's really good skill. Most of the other skills from here aren't too great except for Replicate, and Golem Bane can be nice. On Corrin specifically, the Golem Bane's a pretty niche skill, but since Corrin can do literally anything, you can take Golem Bane into another class that has better matchups against Stoneborn, and then they could do some really funny stuff with it.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So, I think ninja talent can be good on physical Corrins. I do think it's worse than any of their magical Juggernaut builds, like Dark Knight or Malignite, but, like, it's cool. And, like, Corrin is a bit more built towards strength, and Master Ninja will give him a lot of speed, so that definitely helps him a lot.
And Strength Boon raises the strength cap of Master Ninja as well, so you almost never feel the reduced attack that, like, you know, Master Ninja you'd think would have.
So it's pretty nice. I did have a slightly negative experience with it, but let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's certain ninja coins out there that I would put in fraud status in my Conquest runs due to the fact that they had soul, but they'd overkill even without critting, so they just end up dying anyway because they're too powerful.
Maybe soul just sucks.
Maybe you're right, yeah. So, you know, it's definitely one of those classes that, like, the skills alone will help out any bad sides that Corrin would have alone. Replicate alone makes it at least worthwhile considering. Maybe consider a friendship with Kaze or marrying Kaze if you're based. I think it's a strong talent, just maybe not like the best of the best, but I think on female Corrin, it's a little bit better than on male Corrin specifically.
Yeah. It might be like a top 5-ish talent, maybe. Maybe a little bit lower than that. It's pretty good. Ninja isn't a class I think you benefit from having that many of, which kind of hurts it compared to Outlaw or Archer or Wyvern, but if you're not planning on using a Master Ninja, Silas, or Soleil or something, it can be pretty useful.
It's somewhere within the range of like the higher echelon of talents for sure. Spear Fighter, I don't like this class. I don't like it. It's just the skills. I've never been a huge fan of swap because, like, most cases I'd want swap. I'd rather have shove. It's so hard to use shove in a game like this. If it was reposition, I could see an argument, but it's swap. Fates doesn't really have too many situations where you'd actively want to do that. If you're using both shove and swap, how? I'd like to know.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, like, if there's a way outside of capturing, maybe. That's all I can think of. Seal speed. Like, okay, maybe. No, I can't see any argument for it. By the time it becomes a problem, you're gonna kill them with the next unit. Even if they only do one attack for most Conquest runs, because obviously Conquest enemies aren't really that bulky in the first place, outside of, like, the Faceless, really. And I guess, like, Lancefare is, like, the one thing here, but there's not that many units that want that in the first place, because they're either already doing that much damage, or it's just so high up on the echelon that, do you really want to go through Spearmaster just to get Lancefare? I don't know. And, like, Basara is solid, but it's probably the most drastic, in my opinion, of, like, which talents are worst to pick from base class to promo that share a promo line, because there is almost nothing here that I'd want compared to Diviner over there, because oh, ooh la la, the Diviner skills.
Yeah, if you want Basara, just go Diviner talent. I could see the argument for swap or Lancefare, but I think lances are probably the worst weapon type on Corrin. Swords are better on them since they have innate sword rank, so they can actually take advantage of that. I think there are situations where you would want lances, like a lance wyvern, but I think axes are just kind of better. They're just at the better place in the weapon triangle and do more damage.
Just get Axe Fair, which you can get much easier access to. You don't need to spend a talent on that.
Swap, I think it could be nice. Like, if you're having a unit do a bit of player-phase combat at a choke point, and then you can, like, swap them out, and then Corrin does the enemy phase combat. Like, maybe, but I don't know. It seems kind of niche.
That's so niche, and also, like, most enemies that be in that situation have 1-2 range anyway. So it's not gonna be helpful. Like, again, this is one of those cases where reposition would have been much nicer. I guess swap for, like, pushing a unit one tile extra, like if they're like one tile behind. But I think that's just a matter of planning. One tile is something you can get through. Like, there's movement +1, for instance. And you can stack that with, like, another move +1 pair-up bonus. And also there's shove, which is just better IMO.
Spearmaster is honestly kind of bad. I know there's fans of this class, especially in, like, Rev. I know people who like it. But in Conquest, it's just foot-locked, lance-locked. Infantry is just really not the play. It's a lot like Greatmaster. The stats are honestly solid, but every other trait of this class just works against Corrin in so many ways. It's not really a good thing to go and do for combat. Spear Fighter would be really funny for, like, an Omni Seal build, but unfortunately you can't get that in Conquest. You can't have Seal Defense and Seal Resistance on the same unit.
Yeah, and also Draco Hex exists. So
Yeah, Draco Hex is also just better.
it just negates it.
It wouldn't be good if you could get it, but it would be really funny, and there's no comedy. We can't get the funny build. I'm gonna cry. I've done 4 Seal Odin though, that's funny.
Real. Honestly, I know people are very low on Sky Knight, and I could see why, especially if you're looking into getting into Kenshi. Kenshi Corrin is just better if you have quick draw. But Darting Blow is very nice. Rally Speed is nice. Which blow is that on Falcon Knight?
Warding Blow.
Ah, well, that's not going to do anything for us. I mean, okay, it's better than Armored Blow, but not by much.
Is it better than Armor Blow? Maybe. I guess Corrin has bad res.
Yeah, it can be nice against the sorcerers if Corrin is like worried about getting hit, but there's so many other ways to mitigate that. Like, Maid Corrin smiles.
True.
I think like Darting Blow is the main thing you'd want, but of course there is the big Azura elephant in the room where there's the marriage or friendship, so this is definitely one of the lowest talents to go for female Corrin. For male Corrin, I could see an argument for. It's also like Darting Blow and Rally Speed are good skills to give. So if nothing else to pass down, it's nice. You know, we've discussed in length about how lances are just not amazing, and Falcon Knight is kind of the same there. And not having Guard Naginata access is also kind of sad. The staff access is nice. Having flying staves occasionally is very nice, but of course that is more useful in like a Conquest context than it is like in a Conquest context. Not to say that it can't be there, but yeah.
I like the shade you're throwing on female Corrin Sky Knight talent when I have a whole run where I did that. It might be on the lower end of talents, but I still like it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice.
Kitchen Knight is still, like, really good regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Sky Knight being on the lower end of talents is more like other talents being good than Sky Knight being bad. Because, like, Darting Blow is really good, Rally Speed is really nice utility, Flight is incredible.
Yeah, and the unique thing about Sky Knight compared to the other Hoshidan classes is that it's not exclusive to Corrin really, like at all. Like Azura gives Sky Knight, and I think there's another unit that gives Sky Knight, but maybe I'm tripping.
Shigure? Oh, Selena. You're thinking of Selena.
Yeah, Selena. Those 3 units, you get plenty of those for, you know, just tossing around and reclassing. So it's not a particularly rare class to find or get into, which is probably the main reason why people would have it low. But it's not a bad talent either. You're getting usage out of Darting Blow, especially like early game. Rally Speed, like you can never really say no to, especially if you're going like a Rallybot Corrin. And again, like staff access, flying, it's just good.
Falcon Knight is, well, for combat, basically always outclassed by Kinchi Knight, because bows are just way better than lances. And there's no way Corrin is getting to A-rank lances for the Brave Lance. That's never happening. But it is definitely the class you go into if you want Rally Speed, and they'll be pretty solid while they're going for that skill, so it's not bad for Corrin.
It is still flying, it's still a flying unit. Flying staves especially, and having staves is still useful for Corrin in pretty much every chapter that they're available in, and it does give you access to, again, Rally Speed, so you're not going to really hate using this class, I feel. It's just tied to lances for combat, which, again, if Corrin had the Bolt Naginata or Guard Naginata, this could be something, but unfortunately that isn't the case.
Yeah. I mean, what's nice about Corrin compared to someone like Shigure, who's most people's like common free rally speed user, is Corrin does have easier access to other rallies like rally skill and strength, so that's really nice for them. So they can fill a similar kind of role to someone like Selena or Laszlo with that kind of set of rallies.
While also probably having better stats to utilize all that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The trading arc is a lot easier. That's something I noticed with Selena and Laszlo sometimes. Sometimes their combat can be a little bit miserable while they're aiming for their rallies.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, like Kenshi is always gonna do solid combat even without quick draw, really. It's still bows. Bows are still bows. If people can get away with Bow Knight and Adventure without quick draw, then I think people can get away with Kinshi Knight without quick draw. It is definitely worse, but it's not as bad as some other talents.
Azura Friendship is honestly a little hard to build on Corrin, since Corrin is the kind of unit who wants to be building supports with lots of units to get supportive online, and Azura is also the kind of unit who wants to be a lot of places at the same time because she's a dancer. It's a bit easier on Corrin than some other units because they both exist in the Branch of Fate and in Chapter 15, where other units do not. But it's still kind of tricky, so I think if you want to build for a more support-oriented Corrin, then Sky Knight can be a good way to get rally speed without having to go through those hurdles.
Yeah. I think my only disagreement comes with just playstyles between you and me, since I'm a very slow support grindy player. So if I wanted Azura access, I could just like go like chapter 14, for instance, there's just a point where nothing happens. So I just like sing spam or 16, etc, etc, or not 16, 17, my bad. Support grinding in 16 might be the funniest way of going about it.
That's really funny.
Trading 10k gold for one support rank up.
Hold on.
His writing's just fire.
On the topic of money, Apothecary.
Yes.
Apothecary is a pretty fun talent.
Oh, for sure.
Because you don't get a lot of access to Apothecary in Conquest outside of Midori, who is a second gen unit from a father who joins in Chapter 12, so Midori usually joins kind of late. But Apothecary, Corrin, you can get them a lot earlier. They get like really cool skills like Potent Potion and Quick Salve, which improve the usage of your tonics and healing items. You can use a healing item and attack in the same turn, and that's like really nice.
Corrin also benefits off of those two Apothecary base skills because of the fact that they get convoy access. And even ignoring that, having Corrin paired up with Apothecary, because if you're getting Apothecary, you probably also want to pass it down to someone else. You can just have Corrin pair up to them with their awesome support pair up stuff, and they get convoy access too. So this is a very good skill to have on Corrin and anyone else that Corrin is regularly pairing up with. It's not amazing on player phase units, IMO. I've tried using it, they just don't get hit. But if you're seeing a lot of enemy phase combat, there's no reason to say no to these two. They're just solid.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to turn an Apothecary into an enemy phase unit since they get Mechanist, which is a 1-2 range dagger unit, has a lot of enemy phase potential, like good strength defense. It's pretty solid.
And on Replicate, Potent Potion actually does matter because it heals both the original and Replicate, so it's just genuinely very nice. So you could have like one guy just heal and then attack, and then the other guy, if that guy gets hit, then they can also heal and then attack. That's the theoretical, like, if we're maximizing our Replicate salve uses.
Potent Potion also gives you more stats from tonics, so it's like a situationally better defender in some cases. And definitely if you're planning on going into a dagger class anyway, like Mechanist specifically, then like Apothecary definitely has a lot better skills than Ninja, outside of specifically Shuriken Fair, which comes online pretty late.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Merchant is really fun, because it has bows, which are fun, I like bows, and good strength and defense, and Profiteer, which is a luck % chance to get a gold bar on the first 7 turns. And that just gives you more money. And that's fun. I like money, because I like doing a lot of like high effort builds in my playthroughs, and that can cost a lot of seals. And so the money definitely helps for that, for avoiding that kind of thing. And so that's why I like almost always use Midori in my playthroughs. And Corrin lets you get another Profiteer user, so that's really nice. And Spendthrift can also be pretty fun for like a player phaser. It's helpful for especially slower units, which I guess doesn't super apply to Corrin, but Merchant isn't that fast, so maybe it can, to help like one-shotting or dual striking especially. And it does a lot with the Brave Bow, so it's really nice.
I think the main thing that should be noted is that Conquest does give you the most amount of gold compared to all 3 routes. So you could totally get away with not having any extra gold bonuses outside of like Lilith's Temple. But even then, like more gold does mean that you could buy that extra, extra weapons or, a couple staves that you might have not been able to reach. It just allows for an extra buffer.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to act like it's necessary, because it definitely isn't, but it's nice. It helps with, like, convenience purchases, like reliability tonics.
I'm not very huge on Spendthrift, honestly, but that's just because I don't like using my gold bar. That could be like 2 tonics. I'm like lower on Spendthrift than some others, but I do like Apothecary talent as a whole. I think it's like a really fun one. It's also not a very popular talent. I believe it's ranked somewhat low in like the Conquest stuff. So yeah, go try out Apothecary builds a little bit more, guys. You'll have fun with it. For sure.
I wonder how long just the talents took us. Let's see. 2 hours! Let's go!
Yeah!
Okay, is that good? Do you think there's anything we missed for the Hoshiden classes?
I think the main thing we should re-emphasize that the Hoshiden classes are so much more desirable as talents in Conquest. Like, I think if you're looking for talents outside of Outlaw, really, I think most people should be looking at the Hoshiden classes first, at least. They're very, very nice. These are some of the most important talents to give Corrin overall. Like, I don't think there's any one here outside of like Spearfighter and Oni that I would say no to.
Yeah. Corrin has a lot of really good classes on both the Hoshiden and Noirian sides, and especially getting the completely unique or almost unique access to some of these classes can be really nice. And how are we transitioning into Nohr Prince Corrin on Chapter 7? How are we doing that?
Well, how are we doing that?
Alright, so Nohr Prince Corrin on Chapter 7. That's all the, like, long-term Corrin choicey stuff out of the way. But I do think it's worth talking about what Corrin is, like, always going to be able to contribute to your runs, regardless of how you customize them, because they are the most customizable unit. But there are a lot of things you can definitely expect from them. And especially in the early game, they are really, really powerful. I know a lot of people really consider them one of the best early game units. And one of the reasons for that is they can get a lot of experience in the Branch of Fate. I know, like, after the Branch of Fate, they usually are, like, around level 7, level 8. And that's not reflected here. Usually I try to keep the unit at the same level as the enemy.
For the record, this is low. I usually get level 9 before Chapter 7.
Yeah, honestly, my Branch of Fate Corrin experience is probably on the lower end compared to a lot of other players. So Corrin's going to be at a pretty high level, so they're going to have a lot of stat leads on all of your other units, and especially with like Felicia or Jacob, who join at this point, who give Corrin a lot of stats on pair up. They can be extremely, extremely powerful, and especially for a physical Corrin, and especially like Chapter 7 with the Yato, it can be like, really powerful as you roll a lot of enemies before your other units have had time to catch up to them. Like even like Silas, it takes a lot of work for Silas to even approximate the kind of stuff that Corrin is doing immediately, especially since it's a lot harder for Silas to double, but Corrin with the Servant backpack gets a lot of speed and bulk, and possibly a lot of attack to one round the Chapter 7 Faceless with the Yato really easily, and that's really, really valuable because the early game is when you don't have as many tools, and so it's harder to reach those one-round thresholds, but Corrin just kind of does that, and that makes Chapter 7 way easier.
And if you can't double even with all that, you have birthday bonuses to get you to that extra step, which is just a Branch of Fate save away. And like obviously Speed Boon will get you to that almost like guaranteed. Yeah, for sure. Chapter 7 Corrin is like one of the most valuable units to have as a combat role. If you're playing slower outside of like the first 2 turns, it doesn't super matter what Corrin does outside of just getting them to lower health, which you do want to have them equip Yato anyway so that they can get hit a little bit more, so that Silas gets Vow of Friendship, or helping out the other guys with like their pair-up access. Because this is one of the easiest chapters to get 0 damage thresholds with the enemy still like attacking you anyway. It's nice, for sure. It's just straightforward, not much more to say. I guess like the difference with Felicia and Jacob is I usually prefer having Jacob on dual strike, whereas Felicia I might prefer doing pair-up, but I think that depends on the person.
There is a lot of stuff that doubling with the Yato can help with in a lot of chapters, like on Chapter 9 even, it can be useful against even the Spear Fighters if you're really fast. And on Chapter 10 against the Onis, especially, it's really solid, so it's a weapon that Corrin definitely appreciates in the early game. And if your Corrin's like really strong, it can even be worth using the Bronze Sword for the extra accuracy.
And, you know, sometimes that +1 speed can matter on the Yato occasionally. But yeah, this is one of those cases where I think what servant you have does change up the flow a little bit. Because if you're having Felicia, like usually Silas ends up being a little bit easier to train, whereas with Jacob, I think Effie is a little easier to train up because you do get 0 damage, so you don't have to worry about that. You're just worried about the bottom corner, really. But also, it's not a difference that is super duper major, because like again, the biggest difference of the gendered Corrins outside of talent usefulness and friendship marriage is the servants. And yeah, this is a Felicia pair up, so you get +2.
Felicia here is helping us reach the strength threshold on the paired up face list as well, which is really nice. So that's something Devoted Partner can be useful for. So I do think for the benefit of Corrin specifically, Felicia is better than Jacob. But Jacob can have better combat performance in his base class. Definitely don't count Felicia out in terms of combat, though. They're both pretty solid. They're both, I'd say, fairly close to each other in performance as units.
I rank Jacob a little higher due to certain maps, but it's one of those cases where you can't really knock one or the other. It's just I generally prefer Jacob because Felicia 2 is just that good.
Oh yeah, late joining Felicia is pretty solid, whereas late joining Jacob kind of sucks.
Yeah, like they have similar-ish stave performance, but a physical dagger unit just isn't that enticing compared to a magic dagger user that you get immediately and don't have to train dagger rank for whatsoever, which can happen if you really just don't train your dagger access whatsoever with Jacob or Felicia, but it's not that it's hard or anything, but it can happen. So yeah, just having Felicia 2 get all that for free while also being like a really good pair up for certain other units puts me personally put it higher. But if we're only discussing early game, the difference isn't so drastic. It's mostly the mid-late game where it actually starts to matter. IMO.
We've had a lot of videos in a row talking about the best unit of the game on a specific map. Corrin is the best unit of the game on Chapter 7.
Yeah, for sure.
And Corrin can also do a lot of really nice stuff with his magic stat, or her magic stat, with the Dragonstone, which has a lot of might. I think it's like... Oh yeah, so the Dragonstone is 14 might, and that's a really high number, especially with Corrin's like existent magic base, especially with Magic Boon.
For 85 hit, 14 might 85 hit is honestly ridiculous for what it is.
Yeah. The downside with the Dragonstone is it can't double, but unlike like Nosferatu on Odin, Corrin just has so much damage that it's very feasible to reach one-shot or dual strike thresholds with that really easily.
Dragonstone is a weapon that specifically benefits from how Fate utilizes mechanics like dual strikes. If it had like a regular amount of might, then it wouldn't really be that impressive, but the fact that it has as high of a might that it does, even if you're going Magic Bane Corrin, it's still gonna do like pretty decent numbers. So for certain dual strikes, it's gonna just get you through certain thresholds and it'll be easier to train a lot of units, so that alone makes it really good. It's just a weapon that's boosted up by the fact that it's Fates more than anything else.
And that lets you kill some really tough enemies like these paired up spear fighters on Chapter 9. It just one-shots them at this lower level than what Corrin is probably going to be at this point.
Yeah, no, like, I think my Corrin reaches like level 11 by now. Granted, people say that I tend to have an over-leveled Corrin sometimes, but it's good. Like, Corrin is very solid in Chapter 9. This is definitely the map where you want to start training up units, so this is definitely a point where you want to maybe not one round KO with Corrin, but it can be helpful otherwise.
Yeah. So that's the reason you might want to like unequip Dragon Fang to make sure that you don't like accidentally one-shot and you can train up your other units if you want to be doing that. Really my only complaint with the Dragonstone, I mean besides not being able to double, which doesn't matter too much with this high might, is the hit rates. I do wish it was more accurate and it could benefit from Weapon Triangle Advantage. Not being able to benefit from Weapon Triangle Advantage definitely hurts it, but like overall it's pretty good.
Stones just not having any interaction with the Weapon Triangle at all is definitely interesting, but I guess it's truly just a moment of, you know, you don't lose anything, you don't gain anything either. I think if you could buy Dragonstones...
You can, technically. You don't get anything from it because you can't forge it, but you know.
That's kind of the main thing, like if you could buy and forge it.
Overall, Corrin has a lot of really solid early game performance on both the physical and magical sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, there isn't any one chapter where I think Corrin is not doing well, unless you're reclassing Corrin. That's when things go downhill really quickly. I've seen a very popular person on the internet go ninja talent early on because their chat audience told them to. Like chapter 8, I think, on Lunatic. And they never played any like Lunatic before. They only played Lunatic Birthright, and yeah, that it's not gonna end up very well, especially when you have like the least amount of forging access and Corrin's at E rank, bronze daggers. It's rough. It's really bad.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. But yeah, let's things transition into the mid game. This is definitely a point where Corrin might already be B class, and there are a lot of solid classes you could put Corrin into, but Corrin also just performs pretty well in their base class of Nohr Noble at this point, because Chapter 15 is a map where you can only deploy Corrin, Azura, and Gunter. And Azura is a dancer, and Gunter is not that great as a combat unit. So what that map is kind of designed to do is funnel a lot of experience into Corrin. So exiting Chapter 15, Corrin is gonna have a lot of experience, and it's very easy to get them to a level 20 promotion by that chapter. So this is a situation where I'm breaking my same level as the enemies rule to just showcase what that kind of looks like, because they kind of just turn into Leo.
Yeah.
The things that Nohr Noble Corrin is going to be doing on this map are very similar to the kind of things that Leo can do. With less movement, obviously, but like with their high damage Levin Sword, which I recommend buying for Corrin at the stretch if you're keeping them in the base class for a little while.
Even if you don't have the greatest magic stat, even if you have even like 8 magic by like this point in the game, if you like buy every tonic, give Corrin 11 sword, they will one round almost everything aside from the ninjas. It's generally not that hard, and Gunter pair up is very nice. Azura should have decent levels by then, so she can actually still work as a good dual striker, so that'll help for sure for chapter 15. Same with Gunter occasionally. Gunter having 2 range whatsoever, it also kind of helps him. There's a lot of ways you could go about it, but Corrin's definitely getting like a crap ton of EXP. Like this is your alms trials equivalent, where it's like if you're not promoted yet, you're definitely gonna be promoted now. And yeah, you're definitely getting Inspiring Song with Azura, so you can utilize it for the replicate Corrin, I believe. I might be wrong because like there's certain things with the replicates in that map that I get confused by sometimes.
I think Inspiring Song benefits both of them, yeah.
Yeah. So especially on the bottom side, like that'll also boost speed and skill. You're just gonna be benefiting, and you get luck too. So you know, less crit. Yeah, you're gonna do very well in that chapter if you know what you're doing. The main thing is just get the 11 sword, please. Please and thanks.
The stretch from chapter 14 to 16 is a really good showcase of what 11 sword Corrin can do. They just have a ton of magic damage, and unrestricted 1-2 range is like super nice against like the archers on chapter 14, the outlaws here, and even the dark mages here. So Corrin's gonna pull ahead of the level curve exiting chapter 15, so much like after chapter 6, they just over level them again. It's incredible. So you can actually get away with not feeding Corrin that much in the early game, and they'll still be just like incredibly strong in the mid game. And their performance as a Nohr Noble is genuinely pretty exceptional in these chapters, especially like chapter 16. Chapter 16 is really a chapter built for mages like Leo and Corrin here. Even without a magic build, this is a skill build just for the accuracy, and she just kind of still does it. And actually, maybe this is even a good time to talk about Gunter pair up, which I'm not using here, but Gunter has a similar personal skill to Felicia and Jacob. It gives +3 damage dealt and +15 hit to Corrin, and that's incredible.
Especially on the 11 sword.
Yeah, especially with 11 sword, because accuracy is a lot harder to stack than damage and speed. So that just free +15 hit is just amazing. It's like supportive, but for benefiting Corrin, as opposed to Corrin benefiting someone else. So yeah, Nohr Noble can be pretty nice at this stretch. And it is gonna fall off a bit after this. I think it is pretty bad on chapter 17. It doesn't have any good matchups there. But it can still be pretty good on chapter 18 against like the generals or the heroes. And Corrin starts on the left side of that map, so that's where she wants to be anyway. Corrin's fixed deployment slot is something that's occasionally relevant sometimes, but since pair-up exists, it's mostly only relevant on 18 and 22 and 25, I think. And this is like right after unlocking the tier 2 shops, so around this point is probably where you want to be reclassing, maybe a little bit earlier than this. I think the situations I would recommend reclassing earlier than that are specifically if you're trying to train your Corrin's Lance or Axe rank. You definitely benefit from having a higher weapon rank in those weapon types, especially Axe rank. It's not as necessary for Tome, Dagger, or Bow rank, since bronzes are usually going to be all you need in those weapon types anyway, but it can at least be nice if you're trying to go for like the Lightning Tome or the Hunter's Knife. But I personally recommend staying in Nohr Noble at least until chapter 16 because of how powerful it is on this map. This performance is just completely absurd. I think arguably better than what Xander's doing on this map in some cases. Not as good as Leo, since Leo obviously has a resistance stat, so he's better at taking on the left side with its Dark Mages and Sorcerers. But I do really like Corrin for especially the top right section of this map. There's a god spot that you can put them in, where they can handle basically all of the outlaws and a good chunk of mercenaries while staying out of the range of the tougher heroes, and I really like putting them there for that section of the map. I say top right instead of just right because of the Wormslayer mercenaries on this map, which does come up very occasionally. The most notable instance is on chapter 26 in the hero room, and those are going to be dealing effective damage against Corrin. But as long as you know how to pick your battles, it's going to be a pretty minor inconvenience at worst.
For sure, and once you're promoting up, you could get Draco Hex by then if you're really pushing for it. I've gotten Astra sometimes in this chapter alone when I was ranking up. So realistically, yeah, you definitely get Draco Hex and then swap out if you want to keep that class for certain maps. Once again, I already mentioned Kotaro is like a great usage of Draco Hex for sure. And even like Ryoma if you want to solo him or stay alive for longer if that's the thing that you care about in 25. Actually, staying alive longer is generally worthwhile. So I can't really diss that too much. And yeah, it's just a good class to be in for 15. And in 16, it mostly maintains that due to the fact that 11 Sword is just that good. And she'll generally have pretty good combats against a lot of them. And you already mentioned with chapter 18, the generals in that map are really rude. You definitely want to have like Dragonstone or 11 Sword or Armor Slayer, which Corrin has access to all three of those. So it's just generally a good spot to be in.
After this point is probably when you're going to be a very variable unit. So how they perform from this point is going to be very dependent on your specific build. And I can't go into everything because there's too many. There's too many builds. But there is one funny thing that I want to talk about that Corrin can do that is basically just unique to them and Kana. And that's on chapter 26. They can use the Dragonstone Plus. And actually, they might not even need plus here, but the funny thing about the Stoneborn on chapter 26 and 21 as well are these are some of the hardest enemies to one round in the entire game. A Lightning Tome can do it, and some really powerful dual strike combinations. Like, this is the kind of thing I would want Spendthrift for even. Other than that, your tools are pretty limited, but this is where Golem Bane comes back. We're getting Golem Bane!
Yeah!
So the fun thing about the Dragonstone Plus is it has 25 might. This is a weapon that most people don't really use because Nohr Noble has kind of fallen off at this point. Or not even fallen off, it's just that other things are just better than it. But it can be really funny against this guy specifically because Golem Bane is effective against it, and it doubles the Dragonstone Plus's might. So you get 25 more might. So with a 50 might weapon and like solid magic Corrin, it just one-shots very easily. And you don't even actually need Golem Bane for this. Golem Bane was just the easiest thing to do because it's just one skill. But even with some other skills like Elbow Room or like Trample, stuff like that can help if you don't feel like going into Ninja or Apothecary.
Yeah, even with the Rally Magic. This is definitely the type of build that like you can just kind of get. It's literally just a paralog away's worth of effort to give Corrin, assuming you have like either friendship or the necessary talent. So yeah, this is definitely for this one situation, for the funny ha-has, yes, you could definitely use Dragonstone Plus. And you're definitely getting B rank stones by then, because most Corrins, even if you haven't been using Dragonstone too much, you should at least be approaching B stones by this section of the game, which again, it's just a paralog's worth of effort away of boosting up. Or an arm scroll. They're like one of the cheapest stat boosters in the game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, by chapter 26, you have a lot of money. You get like 10,000 gold after chapter 25, so you can easily buy an arm scroll for Corrin at this point, if that's what you want to be using it on. Corrin is a very interesting unit to compare to other units, because they can just kind of do anything. So, you can kind of compare them to anyone in any class, and just see how they perform. But as like an example of that, here I've turned them into a Master Ninja, and I'm comparing them to a standard Master Ninja Silas as kind of a proxy for what you can expect from physical Corrins as a whole. Not just Ninja, also like Wyvern or Paladin or Hero, stuff like that. This is kind of what you can be expecting from physical Corrins. With specifically Strength Boon here, Corrin definitely feels the impact of the Strength Boon. He gets a lot of strength to match Silas's Elbow Room here, and generally look pretty similar in a lot of areas, which makes sense because both of these units are units who have pretty like average growth in a lot of areas, like around the 50-55s. So Corrin will be pretty similar to Silas in a lot of ways as a physical unit. But what's really nice about Corrin compared to Silas is just their ridiculous class access. They could get a lot of skills that Silas absolutely can't and would definitely benefit from.
It should be also noted that Silas can't be used in 15, whereas Corrin gets like everything in 15, so it makes getting to this threshold just way quicker than Silas would be able to.
If you know what to expect from Silas in popular classes that he likes to be used in, like Ninja or Bow Knight or Wyvern, then you have a pretty good proxy for how Corrin will perform there. But of course, Corrin can be a lot faster than his speed boon or something, or stronger with strength boon, or bulkier with like HP boon, or even more accurate with skill boon. So there are a lot of ways that Corrin can pull ahead of Silas, so Corrin is just a really versatile unit. And then same kind of thing for magic. Again, Leo is also another unit who has 50-60% growth in a lot of areas, so Corrin does look pretty similar to Leo in a lot of ways, like around the same magic and speed with like magic boon. This is definitely a situation where I think Leo is pulling ahead here statistically because he has a lot more HP and resistance. The HP we can explain with HP Bane, but still, Corrin has to have a Bane in something. So unless it's like Strength Bane, that's gonna be something that Leo can pull ahead in.
It's still gonna be lower than Leo on average, I feel. And yeah, the res thing, it means that these two are just different role-wise. I think Leo is more enemy phasey, especially like Paralogs, where you really like having a mixed tanker. Whereas with Corrin over here, this is more of a player phasey mixed attacker, if that makes any sense. And yeah, having the Grim Yata buffs help her a little bit to handle most things, but really the main thing is she gets tome access and sword access, which she should have quite a lot of rank-wise. And yeah, it helps her having Heartseeker and Melphikora.
Yeah, she's definitely going to be able to use the 11 sword, which is really nice for her, compared to Leo, who has to see 30 combats with it in his lower strength stat. Corrin's actually like a bit of a mixed attacker, so they can use the Grim Yato as like a physical nuke option if the situation demands it, since Dark Knight honestly has pretty good strength.
This is definitely a build, admittedly, that's a little bit better in Birthright, due to the fact that Horse Spirit access doesn't require a Paralog to play, and bulk mixed, attacker and tanking is very coveted in that route. But in Conquest, it's still solid for sure. It's just that Leo's doing a slightly better job at the tanking part. Corrin does a little bit better on the attacking front.
Yeah, she's slightly faster and a bit more accurate, and that could be pretty nice for her. Overall, I think if we're just looking at the stats, then I do think Leo wins here. But Corrin can get a lot of really nice skills to put into this class, or even a class like Malignite, which Leo has to get a very specific marriage to get into. It's a very specific, very contested marriage, so that could be really nice for Corrin. And Corrin's also a really nice support unit in this class with supportive, because Dark Knight has really good para bonuses in magic, defense, and movement.
Honestly, just for Dark Knight's para bonuses alone, it's like worthwhile at least putting her in that, because you get a decent attacker, not the most fragile unit ever, and you get really good para bonuses. You get Heartseeker, Melphikora, just good, and you get Grim Yata buffs by the time you're like probably there.
And probably the quote-unquote optimal, most popular way to use Corrin is as a Malignite, which is very similar to Dark Knight, but I do think it's worth comparing her to the most popular magical Malignite candidate in that role, which is Elise. And I do think Corrin pretty handily is better than Elise as a Malignite.
Yeah.
Elise is a unit that really struggles with hit rates, especially with the Bolt Axe, but even with the Fire Tome sometimes. It can be kind of bad for her. And so Corrin having a plus 10 hit lead on her is really good. That's really important from all that skill that she has. Really the only things that Elise is going to be leading is resistance, which I guess is good, and magic and speed. But Corrin's offenses are still really solid. They're gonna reach any benchmark that you want. Elise has definitely overkill magic.
The skill difference is what's really hurting Elise here for sure. And also, we should probably mention that the 17-5 Malignite Elise is usually almost never happening for most runs.
Oh yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, imagine starting a Wyvern that early and just keeping her there until level 17. Holy, if this is Troubadour level 17, I could see an argument for that, but it's like, woof. But for sure, like, even combat-wise, I think, like, Corrin is just gonna typically find herself in better situations, because she is going to get more investment at the end of in most runs. She'll be a little bit more bulkier. She has better strength, which is nice to have. And yeah, the speed difference isn't so drastic that it can't be fixed, and the res difference doesn't super matter at this stage of the game. It's definitely better than Elise overall, I feel. The only situation I could see is Lily's poise for dual strikes for other people that have...
Supportive!
Yeah, supportive just kinda against it, doesn't it?
Supportive kind of mogs.
Malig Elise? Fraud status?
Might be true. So yeah, Corrin's like good defense lead, really good hit lead, especially with Gunter. The fact that Corrin can benefit from Gunter pair up makes her hit absolutely completely fine, even with the bolt axe. It's absolutely no issue for her, whereas it definitely can be for someone like Elise.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be happy with a Malignite Corrin for sure.
The really nice thing about Malignite Corrin, compared to a lot of other Malignites like Elise, is like, obviously Malignite is the best class in the game, so a lot of the units that have access to it are balanced around that fact by having some other kind of major flaw, right? Like Elise has a terrible skill and really tough training arc, and like Niles and Camilla have kind of questionable magic, and Jacob is basically always going to fall off. But Corrin doesn't really have any major drawback like that. She just kind of has everything that she could ever want in this class. So they're just this kind of really strong, no drawback magical Malignite, which is the best thing that you can be in this game, basically.
Yeah, you're already really bulky, and arguably Corrin will usually scale higher than Elise in the long run, especially since most people that go with Malignite Elise do tend to early promo. If you're going Malignite Corrin, you probably would be best off just like doing an after chapter 15 where you're already probably promoted and you're in Malig. You can start training up your axe and tome rank, which at this stage shouldn't super matter since fire is really good and bronze axe is nothing to really scoff at. You're not really missing out on the 1-2 range compared to like if you're going Wyvern Rider, where you have to really train that axe rank up to get hand axe access. Yeah, and again, I don't think we can emphasize enough the skill difference of Corrin and Elise here. People underestimate the skill stack quite a bit, but it's one of those cases where until people actually feel it, they won't know. And I think Corrin's at the stage where you're not going to super duper notice any rough hit rates in comparison to Elise, who's almost always going to have them, and you need Fire Tome like at all times.
The only thing I could see Corrin maybe wanting a bit more of compared to Elise is maybe a little bit more speed, but you could just kind of use the Lightning Tome, and that'll let you double anyway and still kill. And then on enemy phase, you just have so many speed stacking tools like pair up and like rallies, so it's a lot easier to get to the speed benchmark on enemy phase. Whereas on player phase, you don't even need to hit it. So
at least with these averages, Elise is gonna outperform in the same tome, but also like,
will she?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Corrin is gonna end up usually more bulky defensively anyway, and also you're not working nearly as hard for this Corrin versus Elise, where you kind of want to do it at the very start for this sort of class.
It's a little bit rough for Elise.
So yeah, overall, I think you're gonna like using Malignite Corrin like way more.
So yeah, Corrin's just a pretty solid player phase attacker in this class and a really solid enemy phase flyer. So that's a really nice thing for them to have.
Not really much complaining from me outside of the fact that I hate wyverns! Grr.
Oh, you're not gonna like this next slide.
Ah! No! It's terrible!
So I did want to take a look at a couple higher investment Corrin builds at the end of this, just to take a look at like what their peak performance can kind of look like. And we're starting off with the maybe optimal one of a Malignite with some really good mobility and accuracy boosting and like damage skills from Outlaw and Dark Mage. And you might notice this is exactly the same class set as my beloved Malignite Niles. And yeah, that's because I think that's just the highest ceiling a unit can have, those three classes. It just gives you incredible skills, incredible 1-2 range flying combat. There's really just no complaining with this kind of unit, besides like maybe a bit of speed, but it's honestly not an issue at all.
Yeah, the only thing, maybe, I could at least see an argument for some people trading Outlaw with Skyknife or Darting Blow, but that's like literally it. I could maybe see one skill being traded at a time, you know what I mean? But like, that's one skill and one talent difference. The majority here looks like perfectly fine. Like, movement +1 is super duper valuable still.
Yeah, like, you could trade Dark Mage for Cavalier or Fighter or something like that. Some other class with really good skill dip options. I've done this with Diviner before, even. All the builds we're going to be showing are very customizable, and this is far from an exhaustive list, so this is just a very general example of one way to build these kinds of Corrins. Straight Malignite without any skill dip does also work, but if you want the most powerful version of Corrin you can have, I do recommend at least going into a class like Adventurer before this.
No real complaints from me here, outside of what class she's in.
Wyvern Hater Dave?
Wyvern Hater Dave, you know it. It's truly one of those cases where I don't mind people that are in base Wyverns, but in a game with a lot of reclassing potential, I find Wyverns to be such a class because it's almost always universally powerful. But that's like a personal thing. It's a playstyle. Like, I'm the type of guy who plays chapter 20 with like no more than one flyer anyway, so you know, you can probably guess what kind of player I am. So yeah, next up we have Great Knight Corrin. Yippee!
Funny, as we said, Corrin is basically the only candidate for a physical Vantage unit, besides exactly like Master of Arms Odin. And I'm honestly not that fond of this kind of build, but since Corrin is the only unit that can do it, I felt obligated to talk about it here. And the reason I chose Great Knight as the final class here is it has a lot of strength and full weapon triangle control. So unlike something like Berserker, you will never be facing weapon triangle disadvantage if you know what you're fighting. And that can really help on your accuracy. And in the same vein, I've also grabbed Lucky 7 here for that same reason, the accuracy boost, and picked up some damage stacking skills.
No, this is like a very cool build you got here, because like Vantage, Life and Death, Elbow Room, Trample. It's high investment for sure, but it's one that Corrin can definitely just realistically get pretty. Yeah, this is like, once again, the best trade of Corrin is like she's available at all times, so there's not really a worry of like, oh, I can't deploy her in this chapter, because you have to.
You kind of can't deploy her on 25. Kind of.
I guess so, that's true, but like, you're definitely getting this build by 25. Hopefully, anyway. And yeah, like, all the supports here, like, we mentioned not having my castle abuse, but if that's on the table, this is just free. It's not that much work.
And even if not, since Corrin is super duper available, building 3 supports is really not that hard. And if you want, you can even grab like Swordfare for more Kodachi damage, or like Axebear from a Charlotte Friendship. Just lots of really good stuff from this kind of build, if you're the kind of player who likes that kind of stuff. I don't think it's that much better than a just normal double and kill like Dark Knight or Master Ninja, but to be fair, I do kind of hate Master Ninja Corrin, so...
I mean, this one's a little funnier, so I think this wins out purely because of that.
You know what's really funny about this build? Arbor Blow.
True.
3 + 10 damage on player phase. Life and Death has no downside, actually.
Oh my god, you're right. Oh.
That's not actually good. That's bad, actually, but I have done it, and it's really funny.
It's funny for player phase, at least, for sure. I probably would take like a fair skill or even quick draw, but you can't get quick draw with this build for having Vantage on. I guess you could trade, but even then.
Honestly, Life and Death is kind of underrated for like player phase stuff without Vantage.
I've been pretty huge on it, yeah.
So that could be another usage of the Samurai talent that Dave is very fond of.
Yay!
And then, for even more comedy potential, Nohr Trust is like the funniest skill in the entire game. It allows you to proc the proc skills of your backpack, or, you know, whatever unit is supporting you. So if you build a Corrin with a bunch of proc skills and Nohr Trust, and their backpack with a bunch of other proc skills that they're missing, Corrin can have, like, every proc skill in the game, basically. I've done this here with Basara, so that Corrin could get Rend Heaven and Quixotic, which further boosts the chance of proccing proc skills. And Dragon Fang from their base class. This is like one of the few situations where you would actually equip Dragon Fang. And they could just be a really funny 1G Rage proc unit. And it is objectively bad. It's objectively worse than just killing the enemy with raw stats. but it's really funny.
You gotta aura farm on them a little bit, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, my reputation of the skill procs are bad video. I mean, skill procs are bad, but they are fun, and I've never said that they aren't. And I think I will encourage people to do this. Everyone should try this at least once in their lives, just so they experience a bit of joy, you know?
I've done this with a really funny Midori backpack before, a Midori who got Astra from Kaze, and I think they had lethality and my Corrin had something else, and like Luna might have been Profiteer, actually. I think Profiteer works, and like that was hilarious, and bad, but hilarious.
I had a Corrin that was very reliant on skills. Let me see if I can find them, because they have a very recognizable name. Ah yes, Skillzilla. Basically, they were a Killer Lance +7 Spear Fighter into Basara with Skill Boon, Res Bane, with Hoshiden Unity and Soul. And the description is literally, this Corrin is made to spam Ren Heaven, parenthesis when she gets it, and Soul. And the funniest thing is, they didn't even crit that much.
That's really funny.
They almost never crit. They had like 68 crit, and they just wouldn't crit until around like chapter 25, where I was testing mod stuff for like a series I was working at that time, like Fates. And at the time I was testing crits for, you know, textures and stuff, and I forgot to turn it off for Corrin. So everyone started critting. I was like, wait a minute. So I turned it back off, and then Skillzilla started critting. So it turns out all you needed to get a skill crit Corrin to work is to ask, have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yes, that's really funny combat build you could use with Corrin, and almost no one else except for like Hana or Corrin's other kid.
Nohr Trust is like the skill to go for if you want to just have fun with the game, and I think like we should encourage that more often. Like, just have fun, man. It's a video game.
Yeah, but this is where I actually am going to show my support Corrin agenda. And absolutely one of my favorite ways to use Corrin is as a support unit, and especially as a Rallybot, because of the fact that they can get so many classes from their friendships and a unique class from their talent. Shrine Maiden talent is really good for this because you get two different rallies. You get Rally Luck and Rally Magic, and then you can just pick up the other like useful offensive rallies or defensive rallies if you want defense and res, which is like pretty easy to grab. Then you can get like 5 different rallies on one unit, which Corrin is the only first generation unit that is possible on. The most anyone else can get is 4. So Corrin can have a really good Rallybot build that sets them apart from a lot of other units. Rally Luck and Rally Magic are really rare in Conquest. The only ways that you can get that are from either a captured Shrine Maiden or Izana. And a captured Shrine Maiden is going to be a little bit hard to train, and Izana joins really late. So getting it through Corrin pretty early through their talent can be really nice.
Yeah, my only ding against this build is literally just 25, because you can't super duper reach all the corners with Corrin Rally. Not to say that you can't for the early section, where that is like the one point where the rally super duper matter, but if this is your only rally bot, then maybe be a little careful. But like, again, there's capturables, there's stuff that for those specific chapters it's not that hard to compensate for exchange for the rest of the game having a really good unit and a really good rally bot.
I mean, what's really nice about Rallybot Corrin is Chapter 25 is after Chapter 23, so you can capture Rallyman for that map.
And Izana for anything else.
So you don't strictly need to build a second Rallybot for that map. You can get one for free if you want. And that's really the main situation I would recommend capturing Rallyman for. I'm actually not that high on Rallyman otherwise, but he's really nice for that situation. I do still recommend building a second Rallybot just because there's a split path on that map. In fairness, there's also Spearmasters who have a lot of really good rallies that you can also capture on Chapter 23, but having to recruit them and Rallyman can make your My Castle routing kind of tight, so it's a little bit rough.
I like going all in on each side, but for sure, if you want to go split path, I think having multiple rally bots is like the best way of going about it, or just having units that can rally bot in the first place, because that's why Bow Knights are so good, because they give rally skill for free. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really nice. And Corrin has one of the highest ceilings for Rallybot, and that's a really good trait of theirs. And another fun support build that you can go with Corrin is stacking a bunch of auras. And there are a lot of really good aura skills that you can get in Conquest that do synergize fairly nicely with supportive in attack stance. Strategist is especially good for this because you get Demoiselle and Inspiration, and then you can get like Heartseeker from Dark Mage and Amaterasu from Kinchi Knight, and that just lets you have like a really good high ceiling Aurabot, and to cap it all off, you can get Replicate through your talent, or through Kaze, or I guess Midori, and now you have two! You have two extremely powerful Aurabot units that can really support your entire army with like a bunch of extra damage and damage reduction and accuracy and healing. Like, all of this, it's really, really nice.
For sure. And we already mentioned like how nice it is for Corrin to have staff access. And like with Heartseeker, that helps with not only herself but also for others around her. So there isn't really any chapter where this Corrin is going to be strictly bad outside of maybe 19, I guess.
Heartseeker's good on 19.
True. I guess you probably go Maid during that point in time anyway. So it's probably better in that section as well. So yeah, like I think more people should try support-oriented Corrins. I don't because I have other agendas to fill. But I think support Corrin does get overlooked a little too much, and especially I've come to super appreciate support-oriented Corrins in like Corrin quests because they're really where they shine because you're not guaranteed them, and you get to see a lot of interesting stuff there. So yeah, like I think more people should try it out, and Corrin's still going to be in a good combat role in most of the support classes anyway. Like they can still do damage. It's not like you're crippling your Corrin this way, because Corrin works well in almost anything. Like they're gonna be like the second, third best at worst in a lot of classes.
Yeah, Corrin's gonna have a lot of magic and speed and strategist, and if you give them like a lightning tome, they'll be a really strong dual striker. And so that's really nice with supportive. I think this does synergize with supportive better than the Rallybot build. They both do work, it's just this one works better.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's everything we have to say about Corrin.
Aww.
So yeah, Corrin is easily the most versatile unit in this game. They can fill really any role of your choosing, and they'll always be really strong with a ton of stats to let them contribute basically no matter what, because the game just funnels so much experience into them. And so Corrin is like almost always gonna turn out to be one of your best units in your playthrough unless you're like really neglecting them. So I really, really appreciate Corrin. I do think that they are one of the best units in the game. And do we have any other concluding thoughts besides that?
Try other talents than Dragon, please. Try other Banes than Luck. If nothing else, what we hope, or I guess what I'd hope from this video, is we gave you guys some cool ideas or some ideas on what you guys could try doing with your Corrins. Get out of your comfort zone, because yeah, like Corrin is definitely the unit to try out, like getting out of your comfort zone style builds for sure,
because they can kind of just do a lot of things that are completely impossible for any other unit. Or if you don't want to invest super heavily in them, they can fill basically any role that like a lot of other units are doing basically just as well as them, if not a little better. So that's really nice. I do really appreciate Corrin at basically all stages of the game.
Yeah, the only classes that they can't super access is like Songstress and the Wolfskin Kitsune line, and no one's really missing Kitsune Wolfskin. And yeah, with Songstress, like Azura is more than capable. Those are the only roles that Corrin can't fill, and I think that's fine.
So yeah, that'll be it. Dave, do you want to close this out?
Yeah, subscribe to Coding and me. That'd be super awesome and cool. And this is technically a YouTube upload for me. Yay!
Winner!
Hope you guys enjoyed this yap session with me and it. And check out both of our channels. We like talking about Fate stuff. And I like Corrin a lot, so maybe too much, according to some people.
I have a pretty normal amount of Corrin enjoyment.
Yeah, just a normal amount, you know. Totally not biased towards this character whatsoever. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye, Pia.
Yep, see you next time.